Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of what if Deku gave Aizawa the family he never had? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. Get out and never come back. The final sentence his parents ever said to him rang in his head. Aizawa Shoyuta was one who liked to believe he lived by sound logic and rationality, but now that didn't seem to be the case. An acidic kind of anger burned in his throat and skin. When his parents discovered he was dating Yamada Hisashi, a high school friend, they threw a fit. And now here he was, walking outside in the early evening with no place to go. He had no money, so he couldn't get a bus to the Yamada's house. His phone had died, so he couldn't call anyone. He couldn't think of anywhere else he could go that would be open or welcoming the entire night. He was basically stranded. He took a deep and shaky breath. His breath turned into mist in the frigid air, and he watched it fade as he exhaled. It's only going to get colder, he thought tiredly. He knew he was going to have a rough night, and hopefully tomorrow his teachers could help him sort something better out. Until then, he'd have to face the winter. Leaning back against a wall, Aizawa let his solemn thoughts overrun his mind. Mama! A toddler ran over to his mom in a daycare, his green curls bouncing like springs. He giggled as he hugged her leg, before looking up with joyful emerald eyes. Hi. Hey there, Izuku, did you have a good day? His mother, Midoriya Inko, knelt to embrace her son. I drew. Izuku smiled before running off again, a little unsteady on his feet, but that wasn't enough to slow him. The Midoriyas were a loving family of two. Inko worked as a secretary of a law firm, whilst Izuku worked as a bundle of pure sunshine for everyone around him. To Inko's surprise, Izuku had hit his milestones early, talking and walking faster than anyone his age, even faster than Inko's friend's son who was a few months older than Izuku. Those at his daycare were constantly telling Inko that her son was likely to be gifted, considering the rate he was growing and learning. She smiled as Izuku returned and held up a picture. Inko could see it was a drawing of her and Izuku, as well as the stray cat they would occasionally meet in the mornings. It's me and you and Pumpkin, he told her, practically glowing with pride. It's beautiful, Izuku. You know what, this will go right on the fridge when we get home. Inko said. Izuku gasped and clapped his hands happily. Do you want to get your things? Izuku nodded and went to where his jacket and bag were. He quickly hurried back to his mother, so she could help with his jacket. He found the zipper a little tricky. Bye. Izuku waved to his teachers, who happily waved back to the small boy. On the way home, Izuku held onto the hanky he and his mom used to walk side by side. Izuku was cheerfully telling her about his day. Aki-sensei said, Izuku thought about his words before continuing. I may manifest my quirk early. Manifest, sweetie, and wouldn't that be exciting? Inko smiled. Izuku nodded. I want a quirk like you, mama. Izuku looked up at her. You can't decide what quirk you get, sweetie. You'll have to wait and see. Inko told him. But I can hope. Izuku beamed. Yes, you can. Inko nodded. Izuku shrieked excitedly and skipped a few steps before settling down and walking normally once more. They continued walking for a while, before Izuku slowed down a bit. His mother looked down at him. Aizu. He was looking ahead. Inko looked up and saw a teenage boy in a high school uniform leaning against a brick building, eyes downcast and broken. A heavy weight to hang on his shoulders, and though he was trying to keep his face expressionless, his hands were shaking either from the cold or from the emotions he was trying to keep bottled. It broke Inko's heart. Should we see if he is okay? She asked. Izuku looked at her and nodded. One thing everyone who met the Midoriyas knew, no matter who you were, was that if you needed help, they would give it. Inko was a mother hen and would take care of anyone and everyone. She didn't know how to take no for an answer. She could also give you quick as a whip a look that made you feel properly scolded. The power in her disappointment was almost scary. It was one of the reasons no one messed with her. The duo approached the teen, and it was Inko who spoke up. Hello there, she said and then gasped. Aizawa Shoyuta looked up from the ground to a woman with soft green hair. Her eyes stared at the swelling bruise on his cheek. Are you okay? What happened? Nothing. It's fine. Aizawa quickly looked away. No, it's not, young man, it's late and with an injury like that you should go home and get a cold compress, Inko began, ready to go on a full motherly tirade. I don't have a home. Aizawa muttered, rather bitterly. Inko looked at him sadly. She felt a tug on her sleeve and she glanced down at Izuku, who looked from the boy to his mom with almost teary eyes. Inko smiled gently and nodded to him. She wasn't going to let this slide. Then, you have two choices. Inko said, you either come with me so I can make sure you get that scene too, or I will march you straight to the nearest hospital and have the doctors look you over there. Aizawa looked at her with surprise. But, you don't know me, he said warily. That doesn't mean I shouldn't help out. Heroes help strangers all the time, people they will likely never speak to again. I may not be a hero, but why shouldn't I show that same kindness? Inko gave him a soft smile. Now, come along. Her tone of voice showed Aizawa there was no arguing with her. Aizawa stood, stretched and followed after her. It was only then he saw Izuku. The younger boy was looking up at him with wide, wonder-filled eyes. He let out a small gasp. He noticed Aizawa looking back at him and quickly looked away. Aizawa was a little confused, but he was sure he could hear the kid whispering excitedly under his breath. Aizawa found himself watching the boy, who would occasionally glance shyly up at Aizawa. Aizawa raised an eyebrow at him. The boy quickly turned away. Aizawa could see his ears turning red. Aizawa shook his head. He's going to be a problem child, he thought. Inko pressed an ice pack to Aizawa's cheek as he sat on a chair in their dining room. There, just keep it there for about 3 minutes, then remove it for 1. If the swelling hasn't gone down, apply again for another 3 minutes. She told him. Now, have you eaten recently? I'm not a big eater, Aizawa muttered. Then he flinched slightly under her suddenly sharp gaze and gave the truthful answer. I am not used to having a lot to eat. I'll be fine. Nonsense. Inko waved him off. I need to make dinner for me and Izuku anyway. Making an extra portion is nothing. Now, sweetie, want to tell me what happened? She asked as she began getting out things for dinner. Aizawa's hand gripped the ice pack tightly. Got kicked out because they didn't like who I was dating, Aizawa answered, cagily. And they hit you? Inko's voice sounded a little sharp at that. It's nothing new, Aizawa muttered. So, you've been living in an abusive household, Inko said bluntly, then she sighed and started peeling potatoes. Well, if you have nowhere to stay, I have a spare futon in the cupboard and a box of my ex-husband's clothes. They may be a little big, but they'll do for now. The shower room is the last door on the left upstairs. Dry towels should be in the cupboard in there. Aizawa looked up at her. She shot him a kind smile. A shower will help you relax, dear. Off you go. Oh, but don't touch the All Might shower gel. Izuku loves it and he gets upset if it's used by anyone else. Nii-chan can use it, Izuku shouted from the floor. Aizawa practically jumped to see the boy standing next to his chair. The small boy pushed an All Might doll into Aizawa's hands. Aizawa accepted it, looking down at the doll, then back at Izuku. Feel better, Nii-chan. Nii-chan? Aizawa asked, was this kid really calling him Big Brother? Nii-chan is sad. Heroes make people smile, so smile, Nii-chan. Please. Izuku looked up at him with bright eyes. Aizawa felt suddenly overwhelmed by the warmth and kindness of this woman and son. He bowed his head to try and hide the tears that threatened to escape his eyes. That, of course, panicked Izuku. Nii-chan? Please, no crying, Nii-chan. I didn't mean. Izuku sniffed, thinking he had hurt the teen's feelings, ready to start crying too. Aizawa caught himself and gave the boy a weak smile. Thank you. His voice cracked slightly. Izuku sniffed and carefully lay his head on Aizawa's lap. Welcome, Nii-chan, please smile. The boy whispered. Aizawa looked as Inko held out some tissues. Izuku is right, you should smile. Oh goodness, I never got your name or introduced myself. She gasped before bowing. My apologize, I am Midoriya Inko and this is my son, Midoriya Izuku. I'm Aizawa Shoyuda. Aizawa introduced himself, solemnly. Thank you for helping me. But offense, but you've only just met me. How do you know you can trust me? You have a kid. You're taking a huge risk by letting me stay. Not at all. Though I can see why it may seem that way. I've met enough people, many different characters. I have good instincts. You don't look like a troublemaker. Besides, why would a troublemaker attend a school for heroes? Inko smiled at him, gesturing towards the uniform he was still wearing. Aizawa looked away, unable to deny that her trust was heartwarming, yet slightly concerning. Now you should go and have that shower. You'll feel better. Inko told him. Aizu, why don't you help me wash these vegetables? Are we having carrots? Izuku bounced to his feet, running eagerly to his mother. All your favorites. Inko said brightly, lifting him onto a chair so he could reach the sink. Aizawa watched them, so that's what a mother-son relationship should be like. He couldn't help but feel a slight sense of longing, before he headed up to have a shower. Aizawa was silent as the water from the shower crashed down upon him. The heat of water seeped warmth into his cold muscles, but also a feeling of exhaustion. Aizawa hadn't realized just how tired he was. He sighed. The kindness he had received from the Midoriyas reminded him of how Hisashi was in their first year. The blonde idiot hadn't left him alone, though Aizawa was grateful for Hisashi's stubbornness now. After his shower he got into the old clothes Inko had pointed him to. He headed downstairs and walked into a playful argument between the mother and son. But you brought down all of your blankets. What are you going to use tonight? Inko asked, trying to sound stern. It wasn't working, not when little Izuku was smiling up at her with bright eyes as he sat in a nest of hero-themed blankets. I'll sleep by Nii-chan. Izuku told her proudly. Aizawa tried to stop the small tugging at his lips. Like the bedtimes with Kaken? I see. Inko chuckled. She smiled softly at Aizawa. But, have you asked Aizawa-kun if he wants a sleepover? No, Izuku muttered. So, he got to his feet and stood in front of Aizawa. Nii-chan, can we have bedtime together? He asked. Sure. Aizawa, honestly, didn't want to make the kid cry. Izuku smiled brightly. Daemon, was this kid related to All Might or something? He wondered. Well, dinner will be ready soon, Inko told them, going back into the kitchen. So, Aizawa helped Izuku sort out his blankets. You really like heroes, huh? Aizawa muttered. Izuku nodded. Really like them. They're so cool, Izuku told him. They save everyone. Do you want to be one? Aizawa asked, looking down at the young boy who was trying to neatly fold a blanket, his tongue sticking out slightly. When I'm big, I'm going to be the bestest hero, Izuku declared. Aizawa found himself smiling. It's a lot of work, Aizawa warned him. Izuku stared at him and blinked slowly. Are you a hero, Nii-chan? He gasped in a hushed. Dinner's ready. Inko called before Aizawa could reply. Come on. Aizawa grinned crookedly at him. At the table, Izuku repeated his question, his eyes practically begging for an answer. Inko looked between them with fond smile. I'm training at Yui Academy to be one. I have a provisional license, so I can help out if need be. Aizawa told him. Do you have a name too? A hero name? Izuku was getting extremely excited. I do. But, Aizawa looked at him. I am going to be an underground hero. Not big on the scene. You don't want to know my hero name. Underground heroes are cool. Like ninjas. Izuku told him. Please, Nii-chan, I keep it a secret. Top secret? Aizawa asked, deciding to play along with Izuku's excitement. Izuku nodded. Aizawa leaned in closer and said in a hushed voice, but so Inko could hear. Erase her head. Izuku took a sharp intake of breath and covered his mouth. He looked up at Aizawa with the utmost adoration in his eyes. Erase her head. Inko mused. I am guessing it has a connection to your quirk in some way. My quirk is called erasure. I can stop people from using their quirks as long as I am looking at them. Aizawa nodded. Clever. Izuku muttered. Aizawa blinked down at him. It's a clever name. It's good. I should hope so. My best friend was the one who came up with it. Aizawa replied. Inko noticed the small spark in his eyes when he thought of his friend. Your quirk is a rare one. You should be proud of it, Inko told him. Aizawa's only had a handful of people tell him that, but for the first time, he felt like listening. For the first time of someone worthwhile was saying it. Aizawa nodded. I will, ma'am. He said. I want a quirk like you, Nii-chan. Izuku whispered in awe. Inko smiled softly, before trying to get Izuku to eat his dinner. Aizawa found the atmosphere pleasantly domestic, nothing like the usual shouting, cold room and empty stomach. Is this what home feels like? He wondered. After dinner, Izuku settles into the nest of blankets that lay next to the futon that had been laid out for Aizawa. You comfortable? Inko asked Aizawa after he settled into the futon. Yes, ma'am, thank you. Aizawa nodded. Good. Now, both of you to sleep. It's a school day tomorrow. Inko reminded sternly. She placed a kiss to Izuku's forehead as he yawned. Night-night, mama. Izuku mumbled. Good night, sweetie. Good night, Aizawa-kun. Inko said, Night, ma'am, and thank you for everything. Aizawa told her. The woman gave him a motherly look, expression warm and gentle. It's no trouble, dear, sleep tight. Inko turned the light off and he heard her go upstairs. Night-night, Nii-chan. Izuku yawned, curling up into his blankets. Aizawa hummed softly in reply. Dangerously domestic, but it's nice, and Aizawa wasn't sure if he wanted to lose this feeling. Inko was up earlier than she normally was the following morning. She was determined to make sure Aizawa went to high school with a full stomach. He needed to be prepared for the day ahead. She changed quickly and headed downstairs, checking on the two boys asleep in the living room. She covered her mouth to hide her smile. It seemed that Izuku had wormed his way into Aizawa's bed in the night as Izuku was currently cuddled close to the teen, both completely at peace. Inko nodded to herself and went off to make breakfast. But as she worked, she made a call. Aizawa woke to the sensation of being poked in the cheek. His eyes opened to see Izuku sitting on his knees next to him. Morning, Nii-chan. Izuku said. Aizawa grunted in reply and sat up. Mama is making breakfast. Good morning, Aizawa-kun. Inko greeted. Mornings. He yawned, his mind slowly processing everything that had happened yesterday. What had been the chances of him meeting people as kind as the Midoriyas? Nii-chan. Gotta get dressed up for school. Izuku reminded him, puffing out his cheeks. Okay. Aizawa agreed tiredly. He couldn't help but ruffle Izuku's soft curls. The kid giggled, ducking his head slightly. When he had changed into his uniform and rejoined the family downstairs, there was some small talk made, and then Aizawa set off. Inko assured him she would help sort everything out, and that she and Izuku would see him when he finished school. Aizawa headed off, with train fare given to him by Inko. He sighed. Why had the house he had stayed at for one night feel more like home than the one he was raised in? He chose not to think of it for now. The bigger question was whether he would tell Hizashi. Shoyuda. Aizawa groaned as his boyfriend crashed into him. He stumbled slightly, but Hizashi's tight grip kept him upright. Zashi, he said, looking up at the slightly taller blonde teen, who was now burying his face into Aizawa's shoulder. Do you know how worried I've been? I tried calling you. I was scared, Hizashi said. Hizashi was the only other person who knew about his home life. Aizawa rubbed his back but melted into Hizashi's embrace at the same time. Sorry. My phone died and I forgot to charge it. Aizawa told him. He was positive he didn't want to tell Hizashi what had happened yet. I'll let you borrow my charger, just so I know you are okay when you get home. Hizashi told him. Thanks, come on, Ida will probably get weird ideas if we show up late. Aizawa let him go. Hizashi stepped back with a sly grin. Ida can think what he wants. Hizashi placed a kiss to his forehead. I don't care. You say that now. Aizawa told him. Anyway, the faster we get to class the faster I can charge my phone. Valid point. Hizashi smirked, taking Aizawa's hand in his own. Let's go then. Together they headed to their class. Inko, sweetheart, of course we can help out. Shoji Suzu clapped her hands together. Poor boy, we'll inform the right people right away. The faster we get this sorted the better it will be for him. Haruta Tsunayoshi said. He frowned. Was that everything Midoriya-san? Well, I was hoping to allow Aizawa-kun to live with me and Izuku until he gets on his feet. But I am not quite sure how to go along with such a process. Inko admitted. Why not adopt him? That way you can be his legal guardian, and let's be real, you're already a far better mother than his seems to be, Nagata Mushino Koji told her. Whilst that may work, it would also depend on how Izuku deals with the teen, Haruta said. Well, Aizu calls Aizawa-kun Nii-chan already, Inko told them. Oh, seems like he made the choice for you then. Shoji chuckled. Izuku is a little bunny, so cute and sweet. Well, we will try and get everything sorted as soon as possible for you, Inko. Nagata assured her. Inko smiled at her coworkers, thankful for their willingness to help. Now, all she had to do was sort at the spare room for her new visitor, a place Aizawa could call his own. You haven't fallen asleep at all today, are you okay? Hizashi asked. Aizawa looked up at him whilst eating his lunch. Aizawa was thankful for the lunch money Inko gave him. He was beginning to wonder if she mothered everyone. Yeah, why? Aizawa frowned. I mean, it's good. It means you got a good night's sleep and your appetite has improved. Hizashi muttered. But, you tell me if something is up, right? Of course, I really did have the best night's sleep ever last night though. Aizawa told him, I feel a lot better than before. That's good. I'm glad, you will look better too, not so tired. Hizashi smiled. He reached over and brushed some of Aizawa's hair out of his eyes. It is nice to see you're getting better at taking care of yourself, though I doubt they will let this good run last. Hizashi growled the last bit. Hizashi, I can promise you now, they can't or at least won't ruin this good run. Aizawa told him. He gave the blonde a genuine smile, the kind of smile that Hizashi fell in love with. Trust me on this. Hizashi nodded, before leaning in close a pressing soft kiss to Aizawa's lips. I'll hold you to that, tell me if they try anything though. Hizashi replied. Aizawa nodded in agreement. He couldn't tell Hizashi yet. He needed time to see what was going to happen. If he got to stay, then he would tell him once he was settled. Nii-chan. Izuku beamed, running to the door as soon as Aizawa arrived back at the apartment. Izuku collided with his leg and hugged it tightly. Welcome home, Nii-chan. Could he really call this place home? Aizawa looked down at the bubbly, bouncing green boy looking up at him with shining eyes. I made you a drawing. Thanks. Aizawa said, warmth rising up inside him. He found himself smiling. Aizu, you should let him sit down before jumping on him. Inko called. Aizawa presumed she was in the kitchen. I am sure he is very tired after school. Oh, sorry, Nii-chan. Izuku apologized. It's all right, so want to show me your picture? Aizawa asked. Izuku immediately brightened up again and rushed off to get it as Aizawa entered the kitchen. Hello, dear, how was your day? Inko smiled as Aizawa sat at the table. Aizawa took a moment to get his head around the question. Did parents usually ask about how their child's day went? Aizawa shook his head slightly. Whether Inko saw or not, she didn't bring it up. Yeah, it was the usual. Aizawa replied after thinking back over his day. Heroics training was a headache though. What did you do in heroics? Inko asked, a little curious. Oh, no, someone in my class has a voice quirk. He literally screams at everything. I literally got a headache. Aizawa told her. Inko chuckled. Oh dear, would you like some painkillers? Inko looked over at him. No, it's okay. I'm used to it. Aizawa shook his head. Just because you're used to it, doesn't mean you need to put up with it. Inko placed a glass of water and 2 painkillers on the table. Aizawa stared at her. You need to think about yourself and your own welfare now. Okay? Yes, ma'am. Aizawa nodded and took them, just as Izuku rushed back in, holding a piece of paper. He climbed onto a chair then pushed it before Aizawa. Aizawa took it and looked down at the boy's art. It was obviously him. The messy black hair was kind of obvious, but then there was someone or something else. Aizawa frowned. I know that's me, got my favorite color too. Aizawa pointed to the drawing of him, standing in black clothes, but then he pointed at the other thing. But what's that? A villain. Izuku said dramatically. You are beating a villain and saving the day. Aizawa looked at the drawing. a strange tightening sensation squeezing his heart. I'm in this kid. Do you like it, Nii-chan? Izuku asked, eyebrows scrunching a little. Love it, thank you. Aizawa smiled. You can put it in your room. Izuku told him. I don't have, Aizawa began. I was able to get a few friends around before you came back, and we cleared out the spare room I'd been using for storage. Inko explained. So, you can have it. Ma'am, Aizawa began. No, not a word. You need a place to stay, our door will always be open to you. Inko told him firmly. And I spoke to my coworkers, something will be done about your parents. Aizawa blinked at her in surprise. This woman had only known him for around 24 hours, but she was already offering her home and helping him escape them? Thank you, Aizawa said, his voice breaking slightly. He bowed his head. He felt something rest on his lap. He looked to see Izuku had gotten off his chair and was rest his head on Aizawa's lap. Be happy, Nii-chan. He muttered. I am very happy. Aizawa smiled. But you have tears. Tears are sad. Izuku looked confused. These are happy tears. Aizawa explained. Happy tears? Izuku frowned. When you get so happy you end up crying. Aizawa said. Izuku's mouth formed a small O, before smiling widely. I'm glad. He continued to rest his head on Aizawa's lap, patting his leg in comfort. Aizawa smiled and ruffled his hair in turn. The massive curls were extremely soft. Izuku giggled and looked up at Aizawa. Will you stay forever now, Nii-chan? If you'll have me. Aizawa nodded. Izuku moved around to look at his mom. Mama, can we keep Nii-chan? Izuku asked. Izuku, Aizawa-kun is not a pet, we don't keep him. But, yes, he is welcome to stay as long as he wants. Yay! Izuku cheered, running back to Aizawa. He beamed and took Aizawa's hand. Let's go see your room, Nii-chan. Izuku said, trying to pull him up. Okay. Aizawa got up and allowed Izuku to lead him down the hall. Right next to mine, Nii-chan. Izuku stopped by the shut door next to his room. Aizawa looked at the door for a moment, before reaching out and opening it. The room itself wasn't too small, like his old one was, but wasn't too big. The bed had plain black bedding, and on the bedside table was a small lamp with a paper card. Aizawa sat on the bed and picked up the card. I made it at daycare. Izuku told him proudly, to make you feel welcome. Izuku then gave him a curious look that consisted of his cheeks puffing out. Does it work? Very much so, thank you. Aizawa smiled at him. Izuku smiled back and hugged his leg again. Aizawa, not being used to cuddling, remained still for a moment, before ruffling Izuku's hair. Mama said that this weekend we can go shopping. Izuku mumbled into his leg. Aizawa had to concentrate to actually get what Izuku was saying. She said you need clothes. Mama said we can get you some, see, 'cause my clothes are too small for you. Thanks. Aizawa had a feeling he was going to have to try and get used to their unwavering kindness. I need to get changed. Do you want to wait outside the room and we can go downstairs together? Okay. Izuku nodded and headed out of the room. He was too small to reach the handle and thus couldn't close the door himself. Help, Nii-chan, he said. Aizawa smirked as he could hear Izuku jumping to reach the handle. I'll see you in a minute. Aizawa told him, closing the door. Izuku settled on the floor to wait. Aizawa changed into more of the old clothes, before meeting Izuku outside his new room. Izuku beamed up at him and held out his hand. Aizawa hesitated for a moment, before taking his hand. They headed back down to the kitchen. Inko was cooking dinner, and it smelt delicious. Do you like your room, Aizawa-kun? Yes, thank you for everything. Aizawa nodded. It's no trouble at all. I work at a law firm, so they are calling in a few favors for me. Inko told him. They promised we will get an update from law enforcement about the whole thing soon. So, I won't have to go back to them. Aizawa muttered. Inko felt her heart stop at the slight fear, but also relief in the teen's voice. They would have to get past me first, sweetie. I may not look like a fighter, but I have been in my fair share of altercations. Inko said. Mama is strong. Izuku burst out happily. He clung to Aizawa's hand. More like a Know how to use my words, sweetie. Inko smiled at her son. Anyway, enough talk of horrid things. I am making gyudon for dinner. Does that sound okay? Oh yes, thank you. Aizawa took a seat at the table. Izuku sat next to him. That's good, you'll need to make a list of what you do and don't like, so I can make meals you like. Inko told him. I never really got to eat a decent meal, so I am good with anything. Aizawa admitted. He noticed how Inko froze momentarily at his words before continuing. I see, well, we'll just have to see what you do and don't like. Inko said, Izuku is a fan of katsudon. It's yummy. Izuku mumbled. He rested his cheek on the table, squishing his face. As he watched his mom cook. It's a favorite of mine. My high school sells good katsudon for lunch. Aizawa smiled at Izuku. Katsudon. Can we have katsudon to tomorrow, mama? Izuku asked. Inko smiled. I'll make katsudon tomorrow. She nodded. When dinner was laid out in front of them, the family of two and Aizawa settled down with ideal chatter. Mostly Izuku proudly telling his mother and Aizawa what he had done that day. After dinner, there was a knock on the door. Aizawa was washing up with the help of Izuku, who was basically just standing there to play with the bubbles. Inko was the one to open the door. Good evening. Oh. She came face to face with two police officers. Good evening, ma'am. Would you be Midoriya Inko? One asked. Inko smiled and nodded. I assume you are here to speak with Aizawa-kun? She said. They nodded. He's right in here. She let them pass before closing the door and leading them into the kitchen. Aizawa-kun, there are people here to speak to you. Aizawa and Izuku turned. Izuku had somehow gotten bubbles on his face. The kid giggled. Bubble beard. Izuku smiled. So, I see, sweetie. These men need to speak to Aizawa-kun alone, so we need to, Inko began. No, please, Aizawa immediately said. He had never felt so safe than he was with the Midoriyas. Can they please stay when we talk? I know what you're here for. If you would like them too, and if Midoriya-san agrees. The police looked at her. Inko had gone over a cleaned Izuku's face. I will stay for as long as he needs me to stay. Inko agreed, so the police and the small family settled into the living room. So, Aizawa-kun, we have been informed of your abusive family earlier this morning. Officers were sent to the home of your parents. The first officer said, pulling out a notepad. But, if you don't mind, we would like any crucial details, like how you were treated, when the treatment began, and usual everyday back at home. Will I have to go back after all this? Aizawa asked, his tone edged with fear. No, Midoriya-san has already given permission for you to stay within her care for as long as you like. The officer said. If need be, to help you feel more secure, Inko began, when I am able to, I would be willing to adopt you as my own. That way you would be welcome any time and your biological family wouldn't be able to do anything. Aizawa looked at her with wide eyes. Nii-chan? Izuku asked. He clutched Aizawa's leg and tried to climb onto his lap. Aizawa took a deep breath. So, my family. Aizawa pulling Izuku closer into a hug. Throughout Aizawa's story, the police took a statement whilst Inko was silently making plans on getting adoption papers. The faster he was out of their care, the faster he could experience a normal life. Is that everything? The officers asked. Yes, Aizawa nodded. During the story, Izuku had shifted around and was clinging to Aizawa's shirt, his cheek resting against his chest. The officers got together their things, and Inko showed them to the door. Aizawa hugged Izuku a little tighter. The boy looked up at him. They sound mean, Nii-chan, Izuku muttered. Aizawa looked down at him. Izuku had a sad expression. They were, but I don't have to see them anymore. Aizawa said. You get to be happy with us, right? Izuku asked. Yep, I think I'll stay and be your big brother. Aizawa nodded. Izuku smiled. It seemed to lighten up the room. Forever ever? Izuku was beginning to jump excitedly. Forever ever. Aizawa held out his pinky finger. Promise. Izuku beamed and wrapped his own little finger around Aizawa's. My Nii-chan's a hero. Izuku whispered, giggling, and let himself fall against Aizawa, cuddling into him. Nii-chan, Daisuki-ai. He said. Aizawa froze. He saw Inko standing by the door with a soft smile. Aizawa smiled in turn and hugged Izuku tightly in turn. A big brother. It was strange, sleeping in his own room and not having raised voices and threats of harm keeping him awake. Aizawa fell into a peaceful sleep, curled up under warm blankets, safe. He was expecting to be awoken by his alarm that he set on his phone. Instead, he was softly poked awake. He opened his eyes tiredly to see a pair of wide green eyes peering at him. Izuku smiled happily. "Morning, Nii-chan." He greeted. "Morning, Zu-chan." Aizawa yawned, sitting up and stretching. "Mama said breakfast will be ready soon, and, you need to change for school." Izuku told him. "Okay, I'll be down in a minute." Aizawa smiled. Izuku beamed and left his room. Aizawa could hear Izuku make his way downstairs. Aizawa yawned again. Before getting up and changed, he was just about to put on his tie when he got a phone call. It was Hisashi. He quickly answered. "Good morning." Hisashi's loud voice rang from the phone. "Too loud," Aizawa mumbled. "Ah, did I wake your majesty?" Hisashi teased. "Believe it or not, I was already awake. And I am already changed into my uniform." Aizawa smirked at his silence. "Are you sure you're feeling all right? This is most unlike you." Hisashi sounded worried. "I'm fine, Zashi, promise." Aizawa said. Hisashi sighed. "I am holding you that Shoyuta. Just, please tell me what's going on when you can." "I'm still worried," Hisashi told him. "I know, but I assure you. Meet you outside the Yui gates, okay?" Aizawa asked. "Sure, love you, Shoyuta." Hisashi said. Aizawa felt his cheeks and neck warm up. "Yeah, love you too." He muttered but smiled at the little squeal from Zashi. The call ended, only then did Aizawa notice Izuku peeking in through his door. "Zu-chan." "Nii-chan loves someone," Izuku said, before gushing. "Nii-chan has a happy person." "A happy person?" Aizawa asked, placing a hand on top of Izuku's curls to stop the kid jumping around. "A happy person, Sumio, one who makes you happy." Izuku beamed. "Yeah, I have a happy person." Aizawa smiled, nodding. Izuku giggled and smiled up at Aizawa. "I'm happy." He said, "Mama said breakfast is done now." He added, before toddling off again. Aizawa sighed and looked down at his phone. He had escaped his parents and was now with a loving family, but how on earth was he going to explain this to Hisashi? For now, he decided he would wait. He needed to settle with this situation himself. Once he had, then he would tell Hisashi. "Inko, I got those adoption papers." Shoji rushed over to Inko's desk. Inko looked up. "Brilliant, thank you." Inko smiled, taking the papers. "So, you actually going through with it then?" Nagata looked over. "The police came to speak to him yesterday, and he wanted me to sit in with him." He sounded afraid, and then hearing his story, Inko frowned. "If I can adopt him as soon as possible, he won't ever have to worry about them again." "Well, we'll be here if you need any help, Inko, please remember that." Shoji put a hand on her shoulder. "I will, thank you." Inko smiled. After the busy day, with all the papers signed, Inko headed to the police station, who requested that she take the papers to them, and they sort everything else out. The wind was picking up, and despite holding the papers tightly, one of the sheets was ripped from her grasp. "Oh no!" Inko tired reaching for it, but another hand caught it. Inko looked up at a tall, blonde man. He gave her a soft smile. "I believe this is yours." He held out the sheet. "Thank you so much, I couldn't bear losing any of this. The sooner it is handed in the better." Inko muttered, putting the paper back into the pile. Before she bowed. "Thank you." "It's no trouble, ma'am." The man smiled. "Well, I better be off, I need to hand these into the police," Inko began. "You're heading to the police station?" The man asked. "Yes," she nodded. "I happen to be meeting a friend from the force soon, may I accompany you?" The man asked. "I would enjoy the company, may I know your name?" Yagi Tashinori." He held out his hand. "Midoriya Inko, pleasure to meet you." Inko shook his hand. The duo headed to the station together. "Ah, Midoriya-san, good to see you." "Is that?" The officer who had been the night before noticed her, turning away from the officer he had been talking to. This is all the paperwork to adopt Aizawa-kun. Inko nodded, handing over the paperwork. The officer took them and smiled. Right, thank you. We'll get this sorted as soon as possible. You can tell Aizawa-kun he can relax. He nodded. Right, thank you. Inko smiled, relieved with getting it in. She turned to Yagi, who had been listening, but clearly didn't wish to intrude into her private life. It was a pleasure to meet you, Yagi-san. You too, Midoriya-san. I hope you enjoy your evening. Yagi smiled. She nodded and left. So, what is your opinion of Midoriya-san? Yagi was approached by his friend. Tsukachi Naomasa smirked. She is a kind woman. Why do you ask? Yagi frowned. No reason anyway, let's go. Tsukachi smirked. You want to hang out today? Hisashi asked. Aizawa looked up at him. They were sitting on the Yui grounds, under a tree. Not today, I got some work to do. Sorry. He apologized. How about tomorrow? Tomorrow is good. Hisashi said. Their hands were wrapped around each other. Aizawa was leaning into his boyfriend's warm body. Wish we could spend more time together. Aizawa thought about that silently. He bet Midoriya-san would allow him to go meet friends more often, yet he was too afraid to bring up that fact. Yamada Hisashi is his boyfriend. What if she shared his parents' opinions? He doubted it, but still. We can try and hang out more if you like. Aizawa muttered. But, your parents? Hisashi began. Don't worry about them, I want to spend more time with you too. Aizawa told him, causing Hisashi to smile. You say the sappiest thing you have said this week. She smiled. You're a bad influence. Aizawa leaned his head on Hisashi's shoulder. You love me for it. Hisashi teased. Yeah, I guess I do. Aizawa replied, allowing his eyes falling close. Hisashi squeezed his hand lightly. Nii-chan, Nii-chan, Nii-chan. Izuku chanted lightly as he drew in the living room, his favorite anime playing. It was of the number 1 pro hero, All Might, Izuku's favorite hero. Oh right, Izuku. Inko looked into the living room. The 1.5-year-old looked up. Yes, Mama? Fifth. A little birdie told me that All Might is going to be at the nearby mall Saturday. Inko smiled. Would you like to go and see him? We will be shopping with Aizawa-kun that day, so we can make time for it. Izuku's eyes lit. Can we? Can we? Izuku jumped up. Yes, we can. He is your favorite hero. Inko smiled. Aizawa entered the house. He could hear then talking. He froze at the front door and listened to it. Nope, he's number 2 now. I have a new favorite. Izuku beamed. Oh really, and who is that? Nii-chan. Izuku told her proudly. Nii-chan goes first. Before adding in a hushed whisper. Nii-chan is ninja. Oh, I see. Inko smiled. So, what makes Aizawa-kun better than All Might? Nii-chan is here, All Might is far, far away. So, Nii-chan is best he is here. Izuku told her. That's a good reason for him to be on top. Inko nodded. But remember, he said he's going to be an underground hero, so we need to keep his secret. I know. Izuku replied, I'm a Nii-chan's one fan. Aizawa felt a small smile tugging on his lips. I'm back. Aizawa called. He heard Izuku giggle happily, rushing to embrace his legs. Nii-chan's home, he giggled. Missed you? Missed you too. Aizawa found himself saying. The smile Izuku gave in reply was blinding. When we go shopping we can meet All Might. Izuku told him. That will be fun. Aizawa smiled. How was your day, sweetie? Inko inquired. Aizawa sat at the table with Izuku and began to talk about his day. He noticed how Izuku hung on every word he said. One day, I be a hero, Izuku muttered. And I can work with Nii-chan. That would be great, Zuchan. Aizawa immediately stopped. Izuku beamed. Nii-chan can call me Zuchan. Izuku told him. Aizawa nodded, as Inko watched the boys with a caring smile. I think this looks okay. Was bored so drew art for the chapter, but with my Galaxy book out of commission, for now, all I have is traditional art. Saturday morning, Inko was awoken early by a knock at the door. She opened the door to find Officer Tsukachi there, holding some papers. "Sorry to come this early, ma'am." He apologized. "But all the paperwork has been sorted on our end. Aizawa Shoyuda is officially in your care when you sign these forms. But I would also like to explain this to Aizawa-kun himself." "Oh, of course, it's no problem at all." Inko immediately smiled at him. "Please come in, I will put on some tea and wake Aizawa-kun up." She allowed Officer Tsukachi in. After the officer was settled at the table with a cup of tea, before she woke the teen. And a few minutes later, the three of them were around the table, drinking tea, Aizawa looking between Inko and Tsukachi, a little worried. "Well, I won't try and keep you much longer." Tsukachi said, "Aizawa-kun, do you remember the offer Midoriya-san made during the interview in which your statement was gathered?" "About adopting?" Aizawa asked, his eyes widened slightly as he then turned to Inko, who gave him a soft smile. "Yes, just so you are aware, Midoriya-san has already filled in the most important documents." Tsukachi told him, "There is just one last thing to sign, but I wanted to make you aware of all this before it was signed." Aizawa sat in a stunned silence for a moment, before looking at Inko again. "I will promise you this, Aizawa-kun, from this moment, this will always be your home," she said. "Thank you." Aizawa gave her a small smile. "If everyone is okay with this, then if can sign this please, Midoriya-san." Tsukachi slid a small pile of papers towards her with a pen. Inko got to work signing it where necessary. "Does this mean I am technically a Midoriya now?" Aizawa asked out loud as soon as Inko had done. She chuckled lightly. "If you would like to take upon that name. Of course, if you do change it, you don't have to start using it until you're ready." Inko assured him. "That is all then, he is officially in your care now, Midoriya-san. Will continue to inform you of the process of the Aizawa case. But you don't have to worry about them anymore." "Mama?" The three of them looked towards the door to see a sleepy-looking Izuku bundled up in his all-might onesie. Inko got up and picked him up. "Morning, sweetie." Inko kissed his cheek. Izuku yawned. "Morning, Mama." "Morning, Nii-chan." Izuku mumbled. "Morning, Zu-chan." Aizawa said. Tsukachi gathered the papers and stood. "Well, I will be off now. Have a lovely day, Midoriya-san." Tsukachi bowed slightly, before heading out. Izuku watched him go, before looking at Inko. "Was someone bad?" Izuku asked. "No, but now, Aizawa-kun is officially your big brother." Inko told him. Izuku's eyes widened and gave a blinding smiling. He wriggled out of his mother's arms and right into Aizawa's legs. "Nii-chan!" he exclaimed happily but said nothing more as he held on to Aizawa's leg tightly. Aizawa smiled and lifted him up and pulled him into a soft hug. Izuku squealed happily, clinging on to Aizawa tightly. "Right, you two go and get changed, I'll make breakfast. We have some shopping to do and a hero to see." Inko told the boys. They both nodded. Instead of holding the hanky as he usually did when his mother took him shopping, Aizawa let Izuku sit on his shoulders. Izuku giggled about how tall he now was as they moved from shop to shop. They stopped in a clothes shop considering how Aizawa now needed a whole new wardrobe. As Inko and Aizawa looked through the many shirts on a rack, Izuku held on to his trouser leg tightly. He looked around with a curious expression, with his thumb in his mouth. Another hand suddenly grabbed Izuku's arm in a tight grip and yanked him away from Aizawa, who quickly looked as the unknown person picked Izuku up and ran. "Zu-chan!" Aizawa yelled, and quickly gave chase. Inko cried out both of their names in worry. She pulled out her phone to call the police, hoping Aizawa could stop the kidnapper getting too far. "Nii-chan!" Izuku cried, tears flowing freely from his eyes. Aizawa was doing an excellent job keeping up, refusing to let the villain out of his sight. "It's okay, Zu-chan, I'll get you," Aizawa promised, but before anything the villain stopped. Izuku had no idea why the villain stopped, but it allowed Aizawa to get close. The villain silently let Aizawa take Izuku from him. Aizawa hugged him close as Izuku continued to cry. "Nii-chan," Izuku sniffed. "It's okay, Zunin, I got you now," Aizawa assured him. Izuku decided to look at the villain. His eyes widened as he saw them being held up by the back of the shirt by none other than All Might. It's quite all right now, my boy. His boisterous voice echoed around the hall. But, because I am here. Izuku gasped, eyes beginning to shine. Nii-chan. It's All Might, Izuku gasped, tugging on Aizawa's shirt. Yeah, I know. Did you forget he was going to be here today? Aizawa smiled down at the boy, happy that Izuku had stopped crying. Young fan, it's good to see you're okay. All Might beamed, holding out a large hand to Izuku, who reached out, his hands tiny compared to the hero's, who lightly shook his hand. Izuku! Inko had come running, there were a few officers with her. Mama! Izuku cried, Inko reached them, and pulled the two boys into a hug. I was so worried, thank you. Inko looked up at All Might, who took her in for a moment, before waving away her thanks. It is nothing, ma'am. Simply doing my job. All Might said, handing the kidnapper to the police. They were quick to take him away. Can I have your autograph? Izuku asked. He continued to look at All Might with eyes that seemed to have their own star systems. Of course. All Might quite happily handed the young boy a picture with his autograph. Izuku held it with a large smile, one that so closely resembled All Might's. Thank you, he said. After a few more thank yous and no problems. Inko and Aizawa headed back to the shop, but this time Aizawa held Izuku up. Not that the child minded, happily leaning against Aizawa's shoulder as he looked at the autograph given to him by All Might. Nii-chan, when we get home, can I have your autograph? Izuku questioned. Aizawa stopped in his browsing, a little taken back at the question. Inko smiled to herself. Sure, if you want, Aizawa muttered. Izuku smiled. Thank you, Nii-chan. Izuku said. Aizawa let himself smile softly. This was what a real family felt like. So, the fan art. If you want to draw something from this FIC, go right ahead. I enjoy seeing everyone's work. This is from FH Seer, from my Discord server. Love it, he's so cute. And we can all agree Nii-chan is a ninja. This by Glitch Touch. I love it. 'Cause you know, Izuku meeting his Nii-chan's happy person. Hisashi was the first to notice a slight change in Shoyuta. He was sleeping less and eating more. He knew it was a good sign, great even. But he knew Shuta's family, what they were like, how they treated him. That made him even more suspicious of Shuta's sudden, overnight change. He didn't want to push Shoyuta into telling him. That would potentially break down the trust they had built between each other. When a week had passed, the rest of the class had noticed it too, teachers included, but Shoyuta would never give them a straight answer, like he how dodged around conversations about his parents when they had first become friends. Hisashi wouldn't lie that it hurt, that Shoyuta was keeping a secret that was changing him and not saying a word of it, despite the promise that he would. I'm sure it's nothing bad, Zashi. Nemuri muttered, an upperclassman, in her final year of youth. She had snuck into their class before their first lesson began. Tensei was sitting backwards on his seat listening. His health has literally improved in a week, it can't be bad. But why hasn't he said anything? Hisashi frowned, his forehead resting on his desk. Maybe he is afraid of how we will react. You know Shoyuta. He may trust us, but he is still a very private guy. Nemuri reminded him. Just give him some time, yeah? Yeah. Hisashi nodded. Good, now, speak of the devil. Nemuri smirked as Shoyuta walked in. It was odd to see him look so alive. Morning, Shota-kun. She beamed. Morning. Shoyuta said, then glared. Can I have my seat back? Yeah, I better head to my class. See you guys at lunch. Don't anything I wouldn't. Nemuri left the class. Shoyuta sighed as he sat down, wondering how he got mixed up with someone like Nemuri. Morning, Shoyuta. Hisashi flashed him a smile. Shoyuta gave him one in return, before his face fell into its usual bored expression. Or that's what everyone assumed. Hisashi noticed a small smile creep across Shuta's face as he went into his bag for his work. He froze, seemingly finding something. Shoyuta looked so happy, and not the same kind of happy Hisashi saw in the smiles Shoyuta gave him. He began to wonder what had caused Shoyuta to have that look. Over the next few days, Hisashi saw it happen repeatedly. Shoyuta finding something within his bag that caused him to momentarily smile, and Hisashi couldn't bring it up to his boyfriend. He was more afraid of the answer than he would like to admit. He was happy that Shoyuta was happy, but he was worried, what if he had found someone, another guy that made him happy? Hisashi shook his head. No. Shoyuta wasn't like that. If he didn't want to be with him, he would have said it. After all, Shoyuta was a guy who lived by the rationality. But that thought was there now, and it was growing like a mold. Zashi. Shuta's voice pulled him from his toxic thoughts. He looked up to see Shoyuta looking down at him concerned. Are you okay? Yeah, fine. Hisashi gave him a wide smile. Shoyuta gave him a small frown as if he could see through the fake smile. If he did, Shoyuta didn't push it. Anyway, lunch you coming? Shoyuta asked. Yeah. Hisashi got up, pulling his bag over his shoulder. Before they even left the class, Hisashi was surprised when Shoyuta tangled his fingers with his. Hisashi looked at Shouta, who gave him a reassuring smile. Hisashi gave him a genuine smile in turn as they headed to the cafeteria. Midoriya-san? Shoyuta asked one evening whilst they were eating. How many times should Akuin? Inko is fine. Inko told him. Or Mama. Izuku added, his dinner on display around his mouth. Shoyuta gave him a small smile. Izuku had been suggesting that Shoyuta called Inko Mama every time she told him that Inko was fine, and no more Midoriya-san. Inko-san, would it be okay if I went out with my boyfriend this weekend? Shoyuta finished his question watching her nervously. Of course. Inko nodded. Oh, if you are going out, maybe you can put these to good use. Inko got up and went to a drawer. She then handed him 2 offers for a cat cafe uptown. I don't have time to go myself, so you may as well use them before they run out. Thank you. Shoyuta smiled, putting the tickets in his pockets, making a mental note to ask Hisashi the following day. Zashi. Shoyuta was relieved to see Hisashi just reaching the gates as he ran towards the school. Hisashi turned with a look of surprise. You're early, was all the blonde could say. So surprised. Shoyuta sighed with a roll of his eyes, before taking Hisashi's hand. Surprising the blonde further. Anyway, are you free this weekend? I have it to myself. You want to go on a date? Hisashi asked, looking at his smaller, dark-haired boyfriend. Shoyuta looked away blushing. Yeah. I mean if you're not, Shoyuta began. I'm free, we can meet up. Hisashi quickly told him. I am assuming you have a plan? I got given these offers on a cat cafe uptown. Shoyuta pulled them from his pocket. I like that plan. Hisashi smiled. He squeezed Shuta's hand lightly. Shoyuta replied in kind as they made their way to class. Hisashi glanced at Shoyuta as they settled into class. He actually saw Shoyuta tug on a piece of paper in his bag. Shoyuta looked at it for a second, a small smile gracing his features before he put the paper carefully back in place, before getting what he needed out. Hisashi wondered what was on that paper, but still didn't speak up. Hisashi rushed to meet Shoyuta that weekend, and found him waiting outside the cat cafe. Were those brand new clothes? Hisashi stopped out of Shuta's line of sight to take in the sight of his boyfriend. His parents didn't have the money for new clothes. They were always spending their money on alcohol, drugs, and gambling. But he felt a small smile creep on his face. The new clothes did him a lot of favors, as he could definitely see how bulky he was under the clothes. The baggy clothes he usually wore hid all that. Hisashi was soon smirking and continued moving towards Shoyuta. Hey, handsome. Hisashi said. Shoyuta looked towards him. A deep blush was quick to make its way across his cheeks. Zashi, he muttered, looking away embarrassed. What? Those clothes look great on you. Definitely do you muscles justice. Hisashi took his hand, their shoulders bumped together. You're embarrassing. Shoyuta practically pouted. Your fault for teasing me. Hisashi smirked. Come on, cat cafe, right? Alright. Shoyuta nodded. Hisashi blushed a little himself. A flustered Shoyuta was pretty cute in his opinion. He wasn't sure how long they spent in the cat cafe, but he was sure to get a lot of pictures of Shoyuta covered in cats, whilst his boy gave him half-hearted glares. At the end of the day, when they were about to head in their different directions, Hisashi pulled Shoyuta closer and into a kiss. Hisashi smiled down at a blushing Shoyuta when they pulled apart. We should do this again. Hisashi said. Next weekend good? Shoyuta immediately replied. Hisashi nodded. Next weekend will be brilliant. He replied. More fan art from FH Seer, from my Discord server. I am loving it. Just look at the Happily Family X3. Nii-chan. Nii-chan. Izuku jumped up and down next to Shoyuta, as the teen was helping set the table for dinner one evening. It had been over 3 weeks, nearing a month since he had moved in. For Shoyuta, it felt strange, but he didn't want to leave. What is it, Zu-chan? Shoyuta looked down at him with a small smile. Izuku practically glowed when Shoyuta called him by his little nickname. Izuku held out a handmade card. Shoyuta accepted it. He was used to the frequent random cards Izuku would make for him. He found it sweet, and they were pinned up on the walls of his room along with many drawings Izuku had made him. He opened the card to see Izuku's childlike writing in red crayon. Love you, Nii-chan. Shoyuta smiled at it, as Izuku had tried to draw him in his hero costume in the card. I love it, thank you, Zu-chan. Izuku beamed happily and clung to his leg. Shoyuta ruffled his curls in reply. Shoyuta was close to falling asleep during his modern literature class. It was nothing new, it bored him so much. Hisashi would occasionally poke him awake, then would smirk as Aizawa glared at him. All that changed when Principal Nizu opened the door to their class. The sound of sniffling could be heard. Sorry, I need to borrow Aizawa-kun. We found his little brother outside the school gates. Nizu said. Before anyone could even register what he said, Shoyuta stood up. Zu-chan? He asked. There was a slight wail. And Izuku ran from Nizu's side, around the tables and clung to Shuta's leg, crying. Nii-chan. The boy cried. There was a villain, and I had to run, and I got lost. Izuku was shaking. Shoyuta lifted him up and hugged him. Izuku buried his face into his brother's shoulder and continued crying. It's okay, he said, ignoring the looks he was receiving from his classmates, and the one he was receiving from his boyfriend. Izuku finally calmed down and sat back wiping his eyes. Shoyuta then gave him a small smile. Let's give your mom a ring. He stepped outside with Nizu, who led the teen and child to his office. Nizu and Izuku got talking as Shoyuta called Inko. He frowned a little worried. Was it okay that Nizu seemed really interested in Izuku? He knew Nizu was known to be manipulative. One of the reasons was his quirk, high specs, making him more intelligent than any human. Hello, Shoyuta-kun? Hi, Inko-san. My principal found Izuku outside the Yui school gates. He mentioned something about a villain and the fact he had to run. He's safe, but I was sure you would want to know. Shoyuta told her. Oh goodness. He's not hurt, is he? Inko sounded panicked. Shoyuta looked down at Izuku. Hey Zu-chan, were you hurt? Shoyuta asked. Izuku looked at him. I, tripped and dirted my hands. Izuku held out his hands to show a light graze. Do your knees hurt? Shoyuta asked. They feel tingly. Izuku answered. Sit down, Zu-chan, and let's have a look. Nizu said. Izuku plopped himself on the floor and with Nizu's help, rolled up his trousers. The graze was a little deeper and there was a little bit of blood. Izuku looked up at Shoyuta with tearful eyes, lower lip trembling. It's okay, Zu-chan. It's just a graze. Recovery girl can make you better in no time. Shoyuta advised him. You can take him after talking to your other. Nizu told him. Shoyuta nodded. He hurt his knees after falling, but I can take him to recovery girl after this and she can heal him up. If that is no trouble, oh goodness, why hasn't the daycare rang me yet? Oh never mind. I may have to leave early to pick him up, Inko muttered. If she doesn't mind, I am sure we could accommodate young Zu-chan's presence for the day. Nizu said. Shoyuta looked at him. Principal Nizu said Izuku could stay at Yui for the day. If you want, he could stay with me and I can bring him home, Shoyuta offered. Would that really be okay? I am sure, the principal seems to like Izuku. Shoyuta nodded, before adding quietly. I am not sure if that is a good thing or not yet. Well, if it is okay with him, tell Izuku I will see him later and to behave. I have a new phone call to make now. Inko said. Right, see you later, Inko-san. Shoyuta smiled. Goodbye. The call ended. Shoyuta looked back to see Izuku playing with Nizu's paw pads, giggling slightly. Your mom says you can stay with me for the day and we can go home together. Shoyuta told him. Izuku smiled. I get to stay with Nii-chan. Izuku looked positively thrilled with the prospect. Now, young Aizawa-kun. I think you have a little story to tell, correct? Nizu eyed him. Shoyuta sighed and nodded. Nizu only let him go once he had explained how he had come to stay with the Midoriyas. After telling him that they would have to change his emergency contact as Midoriya Inko, he let them go. Shoyuta carried Izuku to the nurse's office. Izuku was muttering under his breath again, but for the first time he was close enough to hear what the kid was saying. He was talking about Nizu's quirk, how it could be used in rescues and villain fights. Overall, Shoyuta was somewhat stunned. The kid was good, too good. Was it possible for him to have an intelligence quirk at his age? He recalled Inko mentioning that Izuku was progressing faster than anyone his age, faster at learning in general. He had a faint idea why Nizu was interested with Izuku now. Recovery girl? Shoyuta opened the door to the infirmary. The older hero was at her desk. Aizawa-kun, it isn't even lunch. She turned, her eyes falling onto Izuku, who clung to Shuta's shirt, his trouser legs still rolled up so his grazes weren't irritated by the fabric. My little brother was found outside the gates. He was running from a villain attack and he fell. Shoyuta said. He set Izuku down on one of the beds. Oh dear, it must have been scary. What's your name, little one? Recovery girl didn't question the fact he seemed to have a little brother from nowhere. Midoriya Izuku, Nii-chan calls me Zu-chan. Izuku answered. Zu-chan, they are so brave. Recovery girl smiled and kissed his forehead. The grazes healed immediately. His hands were still a little dirty. But recovery girl got a wipe and cleaned them for him. There you go, good as new. Oh ho, your quirk is so cool. Izuku gushed, eyes shining. Do you know how it works? Recovery girl asked. Speeds up a person's normal healing. Makes them tired. Izuku said. It's cool. I want a quirk like that. Shoyuta chuckled. You want a quirk like everyone, Zu-chan. He said, an obvious tone of fondness in his voice. All quirks are cool. Izuku beamed happily and rolled down his trousers. Thank you. No problem, I hope to see you again, Zu-chan. Recovery girl smiled. You too, bye-bye. Izuku waved as he and Shoyuta headed off back to his class. Izuku held on to the bottom of Shuta's jacket, looking around. You have to be quiet in my class, okay? It's lunch next, and we can get you something from Lunch Rush's cafeteria, okay? Shoyuta looked down at him. I'll be quiet. Izuku hushed himself. Now to see if my class can keep quiet. Doubt it, they're idiots. Shoyuta muttered, causing Izuku to giggle. That's me, Nii-chan. He told him. Yeah, probably. But true. Shoyuta said. Izuku giggled again. Shoyuta opened his class door, and as soon as he stepped through with Izuku, the whole class shouted out. You brought him back. They yelled, causing Izuku to jump. He stared at the class before bursting into tears. Shoyuta knew it was from the shock of it all. He picked up the kid and patted his back. Told you, they are complete idiots. Shoyuta told him. Izuku sniffled, looking at Shoyuta with teary eyes. That's still me, Nii-chan. Izuku pouted. Yeah, but they upset you, so I have a good reason this time. Shoyuta replied, and looked at his teacher. He apologized before carrying Izuku back to his seat. Izuku settled on Shuta's lap, wiping at his tears. Once their teacher got everyone to settle down, the lesson continued. The class would occasionally glance back at Shoyuta and Izuku, who had began to write in a notebook provided by Shoyuta. It was almost like he was taking notes and the class found it adorable. What they didn't know was that Izuku was in fact trying to take notes, but it was mostly doodles representing what the teacher was saying. Once the lesson ended, everyone turned to look at Shoyuta and Izuku. Izuku lifted up the notebook to Shoyuta. Nii-chan, I did work. He told him proudly. Great job. You are proving to be a good hero already. Shoyuta smiled. Izuku beamed at that news and hummed happily, doodling a little more around his notes. Oh my goodness, did I just see Aizawa? Shoyuta smiling. Shoyuta looked up to the upperclassman Kayama Nimuri look into the room. Then she saw Izuku. Gasping, she rushed over. Izuku looked up at her a little confused. "Hey there, little guy. I'm Kayama Nomuri. Who are you?" "Midoriya Izuku." Izuku replied, the class awed. "And how do you know grumpy old Shoyuta?" Kayama. "Nii-chan isn't grumpy." Izuku told her. "Nii-chan? Okay, Shoyuta, I am personally going to kill you for not telling me you had a cute little green bean as a brother." Kayama glared at him. "Please don't hurt Nii-chan." Izuku immediately teared up. "Zu-chan, listen, she is joking. Besides, she wouldn't hurt me. That is Kayama Nomuri, she is training to be a hero too." Shoyuta told him. "It is a joke, little Zu-chan. I couldn't hurt Shoyuta anyway, he's too fast." Kayama said. "He a ninja." Izuku nodded, earning more os from the class. "Has Shoyuta ever told you about any of us?" Hizashi scooted closer. "Yamamata Hizashi." Izuku pointed at him. He then looked around and pointed at another boy. "Idea Tensei." "Close enough." Shoyuta shrugged. "He told you about us. You can call me Zashi, okay?" Hizashi beamed. "Okay, Zashi-chan." Izuku smiled in turn. "Do you have a hero name?" He suddenly asked. "Sure do. Present Mike is my name, little listener." Hizashi told him proudly. "Cool." Izuku looked at him with wide eye. "You can talk heroes with him after, we should get lunch." Shoyuta told Izuku. "I'll grab you lunch. Best keep the listener out from everyone else, he will be swarmed by everyone." Hizashi got up. "How does Katsudon sound? It's Shuta's favorite?" "I like it." Izuku nodded. "Great." Hizashi headed off, not before blowing Shoyuta a kiss. He blushed and grumbled as Hizashi left laughing. Their class rolled their eyes at their antics. Izuku looked after Hizashi, before looking up at Shoyuta. "Nii-chan, does Zashi-san like you?" Izuku asked. "Well, yeah, we're friends," Aizawa nodded. "No, like friends?" Izuku pouted, trying to think about it. "Like a mama and a dad?" Izuku then gasped, "Is Zashi-chan your happy person?" Shoyuta and Hizashi are dating. They love each other very much. Kayama smiled. Izuku thought about her words. Shoyuta frowned a little, waiting for his response. "Does that mean Nii-chan and Zashi-chan will get married?" Izuku asked, before smiling and looking up at Aizawa. "Can I go?" Shoyuta stared at him, before going beet red and covered his face. "Nii-chan?" Izuku asked. The class were giggling around him. Shoyuta groaned. He was so embarrassed, and somewhat relieved. "Shoyuta is very shy when it comes to personal things. I have just embarrassed him." Kayama smiled. "Don't be embarrassed, Nii-chan. Mama says love is special and why you should embrace it." Izuku said. Shoyuta looked at him. "Thanks, Zu-chan." Shoyuta gave him a small smile. "Thank you, Zashi-chan." Izuku happily dug into the lunch Hizashi had brought him. "Okay, Shoyuta, explain how in the last 3 weeks you've ended up with a brother who's..." Hizashi glanced at Izuku, about 2 years old. "My parents found out about us and kicked me out. Not before throwing a punch, of course." Aizawa looked away from him. "Midoriya Inko found me, and I have been there since. He even kind of officially adopted me." Hizashi looked at Shoyuta with wide eyes, but seeing the look of his boyfriend's face, he just smiled softly. "At least you're finally somewhere safe now." Hizashi smiled. "I want to meet your new mom though." "Yeah, knew you were going to say that." Shoyuta sighed, turning to his lunch. "Well, yeah, gotta meet your mom, now I've meet your little brother." Hizashi smirked. "Guessing he's quick to accept you as member of his family, must be easier when you're his age. Zu-chan has been calling me that since the day we met." Shoyuta told him. "Oh, so it was Zu-chan who adopted you. Yeah, I can see that happening." Hizashi smirked. Shoyuta glared at him half-heartedly and dug into his own lunch. "But, you did say you would tell me if anything happened?" Hizashi looked a little hurt. "Sorry, I didn't want to drag you into this issue. You've already done a lot for me." Shoyuta apologized. "Just promise to keep me updated this time. Or, Zu-chan, if anything happens to Shoyuta, can you tell me?" Hizashi asked. Izuku looked up at him. a few grains of rice around his mouth. Why? Fifth. Because Shoyuta is the type of person to be hurt and deal with injuries alone. Hisashi told him. Izuku looked up at Shoyuta, before looking back at Hisashi. I'll look after Nii-chan and make sure he is happy. Izuku declared. The serious face he was pulling was enough to strike the hearts of those still in the classroom. Nemuri had rushed off to grab her own lunch, but had promised to come back. Shoyuta got a tissue and wiped the rice off Izuku's face. Thank you, Nii-chan. Izuku smiled and went back to eating. I am back. Miss me? Nemuri rejoined them. Izuku looked up. Hi, Nii-chan. Izuku said. Nemuri almost dropped her lunch before she beamed. Right, big sister, I can live with that. If anyone is ever mean to you, send them my way, all right, kid. Nemuri told him. Okay, Nii-chan. Izuku nodded. Nemuri looked at Hisashi, who looked like someone had just placed a kitten in front of him. He is too pure for this world. Hisashi watched Izuku finish his lunch. More rice had gotten around his mouth. This time it was Nemuri who cleaned his cheeks. Why are you coming along again? Shoyuta glared at Hisashi, who had accompanied Shoyuta and Izuku home. At that moment, Izuku was giggling as he sat on Hisashi's shoulders, messing with his hair. I want to meet your new mom, and you don't mind me coming along, do you, Zu-chan? Hisashi glanced up. Mama needs to meet Zashi-chan, Nii-chan. Izuku told him. So Mama knows who he is if you get mauled. Izuku then smiled brightly. Shota blushed and glanced away as Hisashi also blushed. Married? He repeated. That's what people who love each other do. Izuku nodded. Hisashi chuckled and smirked at Shoyuta. Yeah, that's true. He nodded. So, you going to get married? Izuku gasped, looking down at Hisashi. In the future, we're only in school now. Hisashi nodded. Is this a roundabout way of asking me to marry you? Shoyuta gave him a look, blushing furiously. You know what? Yes. Yes it is. Hisashi smirked, as Izuku fell into a fit of giggles. Shoyuta smiled lightly and shook his head. We're back. Shoyuta and Izuku called together. Sorry for intruding. Hisashi said. Inko came from the kitchen. She smiled. Hello boys, and I see you brought a friend back. Inko saw Hisashi. This is my boyfriend, Yamada Hisashi. Shoyuta introduced him. Zashi, this is... Mama. Izuku happily said. Hisashi had to help him down from his shoulders. The toddler ran to his mom. I met heroes. He beamed. How exciting. Inko lifted him up, before turning to Hisashi. It's a pleasure to meet you. Will you stay for dinner? I really wouldn't want to intrude more than I have, Hisashi began. It's not a problem at all, dear. Inko told him. Please stay, Zashi-chan. Izuku looked up at him. Shoyuta immediately smirked, knowing Hisashi wouldn't be able to say no to the face Izuku was giving him. Okay then. Hisashi gave in with a small smile. Izuku cheered and giggled. You two can go up to your room, I'll call you when dinner is ready. Inko told the teens. Okay. Shoyuta nodded and led Hisashi upstairs. They could hear Izuku excitedly telling his mom what happened today. Come on, Zashi. Shoyuta smiled, leading him upstairs. You somehow escaped hell and came to paradise. I don't think I've met anyone who could smile as purely as they can. But, Zu-chan's smile, Hisashi began. Like all mites? Yeah, I noticed that. Shoyuta nodded, opening his bedroom, and the teens stepped in. Is he? Hisashi muttered. No, can't be. Inko-san's divorced. Her ex-husband did a runner. Doubt someone like All Might would do that to someone this nice. Shoyuta shook his head. Hisashi hummed in reply, then glanced around the room. Whoa, he gasped lightly. There were a few photos up, a few were from their high school friendship group, others had obviously been taken after Shoyuta had came here. One was of Shoyuta and Izuku eating ice cream. Shoyuta had a caring smile on his face as Izuku had ice cream all around his mouth. The other things on the wall were a number of cards and drawings addressed to Nii-chan. Zu-chan is a big fan of yours, I see. He looked back at Shoyuta, who had been watching him, waiting to see his reaction. Yeah, I'm his #1 hero. I even beat All Might. Shoyuta smiled, looking at the drawings. Most of these were drawings he snuck into my school bag to surprise me. Explains why you occasionally smiled when looking into your bag. Hizashi said. You saw that? Shoyuta went red. Yeah, was the first one too. But I think the rest of the class caught on too. But we know the reason now, and well, we can't really blame you. Hizashi smiled. He just kind of lights up everything and everyone around him. Yeah, he doesn't like it when people are sad, and will do his best to cheer you up. Shoyuta nodded. Nii-chan. Izuku's voice called. Oh, speak of the bundle of pure sunlight. Hizashi chuckled, as they heard Izuku climb the stairs one step at a time. Izuku then stopped outside the open bedroom door. He knocked on the door, whilst he held on to a piece of paper. Nii-chan, can I come in? Izuku asked. Sure. Shoyuta nodded. Izuku beamed and stepped in. He proudly held out the paper to Hizashi. For you, Zashi-chan. He said. Hizashi accepted the paper. It was a drawing of him and Shoyuta. He chuckled softly at it. This is fantastic. I love it, thank you Zu-chan. Hizashi smiled. Izuku flushed happily, clearly proud with himself. Oh, and Mama said we're having Izuku looked thoughtful. Sabu for dinner. Okay. Sounds good. Shoyuta nodded. Haven't had that in ages. Hizashi said. Mama is bestest cook. Izuku boasted with a wide smile. Can't wait to try it. Hizashi replied excitedly. When dinner was done, the four sat around the table to eat. Hizashi had no trouble getting along with Inko and Izuku, and he soon got into a conversation with Izuku about Shuta's ninja skills. Hizashi smirked at Shoyuta as he began to share stories from their training exercises. Izuku listened intently. But when Shoyuta got up to do the washing up quickly, Hizashi turned to Inko. Thank you. Shoyuta needed and still needs a safe place like this. Hizashi told her. You save him from a lot of pain. I couldn't. Thank you so much. It's not a problem, I was only doing what was right. Inko shook her head. Besides, he needed a safe place and Izuku likes having him around. It only seemed logical to offer any help I could. Shoyuta likes things to be logical. Hizashi chuckled. He glanced to Izuku, who was falling asleep in his chair. You are welcome to come around anytime. Inko said. Hizashi looked back to her. I guess I am right in assuming that you didn't spend much time together outside school hours before he came here. Hizashi nodded. Then, now will be a good time to make up for that lost time. I can see you make Shoyuta happy. Thanks, and I will. Thank you. Hizashi smiled, feeling a lot of gratitude towards the woman. Shoyuta walked Hizashi to the station, as Inko carried Izuku up to his bed. You got a good home now. Hizashi muttered. Yeah. I'll never be able to thank them enough for all they've done. Shoyuta sighed. I don't think you have to. Inko-san obviously cares about your well-being, and little Zu-chan has someone he can look up to. Hizashi smiled. Just be a part of their family, be Midoriya Shoyuta. I may as well accept that. Shoyuta chuckled, lightly. I guess it's time I accepted it, everyone knows my little brother now. Good. Hizashi took his hand. You can be happy now. Shoyuta hummed in reply, leaning his head on Hizashi's shoulder. Hizashi squeezed his hand, smiling slightly. Morning, Aki-sensei. Izuku greeted as Inko dropped him off at daycare. Morning, Izuku-kun. Are you ready for our little trip today? Aki-sensei asked. Yep. Izuku nodded. He turned to his mom. I will pass Nii-chan. He smiled. Inko ruffled his hair. You'll get to pass Yui, but I think Shoyuta will be very busy. Inko told him. Nii-chan busy being hero. Izuku nod with a serious look. But I wave at school. For Nii-chan. That sounds like a good idea. Inko kissed his forehead. Behave though, okay, and have a nice day. I am sure your little picnic will be a lot of fun. Okay, bye-bye mama. Izuku waved her off from the door. Bye-bye Zuzu. Inko smiled, heading off to work. Right, go and sit with everyone Izuku-kun, so we can go over the safety rules. Okay. Aki-sensei told him. Okay. Izuku nodded, joining the rest of his class, who were older than him. Izuku clung to the hand of his buddy, Togata Mirio, who was 4 years old and would be getting his quirk soon. Izuku-chan? I heard you had a new big brother. Togata smiled. Yep, Nii-chan is learned to be hero. Izuku nodded. He like a ninja. I want to be a hero like him. You'll be a great hero, Izuku-chan. I'll work to be a hero too. Togata beamed. We work together. Izuku looked up at him, his emerald eyes shining. Yeah, Togata nodded, his own sapphire eyes gleaming at the idea. Mirio-kun. Izuku-kun. Hurry along. Aki-sensei called. We'll be passing Yui in a minute. Nii-chan. Izuku said breathlessly. Togata held his hand tightly, knowing he had to keep a close eye on the younger boy. As they passed Yui gates, Izuku looked at the building with wide eyes. There were 2 people in the grounds, a small white animal in a suite and a person. The animal caught Izuku looking and gave a small wave. Izuku gasped happily and waved back nervously. He's that animal hero Nizu. Togata said, they say he's super smart. He's his quirk. High specs. Izuku nodded. So cool. Togata whispered in the awe both he and Izuku shared. They were having their picnic near the school, in large field. Togata and Izuku sat down on a blanket that Aki-sensei lay out. Okay, everyone's still with their buddy? Aki-sensei called. Yes, sensei. They all called back. Good. Aki-sensei smiled. 2 picnic baskets were set next to her. So, let's play some games first. Everyone cheered. We have a hat here, and I filled it with the names of games written on pieces of paper. Aki-sensei pulled out a hat from the first basket. One person will pick out a game and we'll play it. Everyone cheered. Okay then. How about you first, Izun? Izuku knelt up and drew a slip of paper from the hat and held it out to Aki-sensei. Our first game is musical statues. Tei class cheered as Izuku clapped happily. After a few rounds of musical statues and 1 or 2 games of Red Rover, they sat down for a drink. Izuku watched the sky as he drank from his juice box. See something? Togata asked. Nope, but if you are really careful you might. Mama says anything can happen, you just need to look. Izuku shook his head. Togata looked up, drinking from his own juice bowl. My mama says the clouds can tell a story if you looked close enough. Togata told him. Izuku looked at the clouds. I see a bunny. Izuku pointed. You're like a fluffy bunny. Togata patted Izuku's curls, causing the younger boy to giggle happily. They enjoyed a few more minutes of relaxation, until the ground seemed to shake beneath them. Everyone, grab your buddy and come to me immediately. Aki-sensei called. Togata jumped up, he reached and helped Izuku to his feet. But once again the ground rumbled. This cracks began to appear. One appeared right between Izuku and Togata, causing Izuku to fall back down. Before Togata could help Izuku up again, hands made of rock appeared from the cracks. The kids screamed as golems surfaced. You wouldn't want me to hurt these children, would you? A villain laughed from nearby. Izuku looked to see the police standing back. Izuku picked himself up shaking. Izuku, are you okay? Togata called, hidden by the golem between them. Izuku backed off from the golem nervously. Don't you dare move, kid. The villain yelled. The golem reached for him. Izuku immediately burst into tears and began to run from the golem. Luckily it seemed the golems had no real speed and it missed Izuku as he ran away from the scene. Izuku hadn't been paying attention to where he was running, he had tripped, but picked himself back up and ran again. But he finally slowed, but his tears kept falling. Nii-chan. Izuku whimpered, wanting his brother to come to the rescue like heroes did. Hello child, are you lost? A voice asked. Its suddenness caused Izuku to JRK away, but someone softly took his hands. It's okay child, I am a hero, I am here to help. Izuku sniffed, blinking some tears from his eyes, to see the white animal from early. This close it looked like a mouse, a rather big one. Izuku glanced up to see the Yui gates. Nii-chan. Izuku whimpered again. Your brother attends here? The animal hero asked. Izuku nodded. What's his name? Shoyuta, he calls himself Eraserhead. Izuku wiped at his tears, but more fell. There was a villain attack and I ran. It's okay. You're safe here. Let's see if your brother is in. The animal led him somewhere. Izuku was busy trying to wipe his tears. Nii-chan. He heard Shoyuta ask. Nii-chan. He ran to Shoyuta. There was a villain, and I had to run and I have lost. Izuku cried. He felt safe as soon as Shoyuta wrapped his arms around him. He was safe. I forgot. There's more fan art. This is from FH Seer, on my Discord server. And this is from me. Shoyuta packed up his school bag ready for the day. Izuku came running in with his own bag. Nii-chan, give this to Zashi-chan and Nii-chan. Please. Izuku held up 2 cards. But no peeking inside. Okay, I'll give them to them this morning. Shoyuta nodded. Thank you. Izuku beamed, before closing his bag. Then, I'll see you later, okay? Shoyuta put his bag over his shoulder. Izuku nodded eagerly. Bye-bye, Nii-chan. He waved as Shoyuta headed out. Have a good day. Inko called from upstairs. I will. Bye. Shoyuta closed the door behind him. Shoyuta. The teen groaned as he was suddenly embraced by Nemuri. Sue. So what? Shoyuta asked. How did it go with the whole meeting the parent? Nemuri smirked. Shoyuta rolled his eyes. It went fine. He answered, before reaching into his bag and taking out the card addressed to Nii-chan. This is from Izuku. I have no idea what it's about. He asked me not to peek. He is a little darling. Nemuri squealed, opening up the card, making sure that Shoyuta couldn't read it. Oh, fair enough. She closed the card and put it in her bag. What was it about? Shoyuta asked. Can't tell you. You're not allowed to peek and I'm not allowed to say. Nemuri grinned. Like the whole, see no evil, say no evil. Shoyuta rolled his eyes but didn't ask. They walked towards the doors when Hisashi joined them. His hands quickly took hold of Shuta's. Good morning. He greeted, pressing a quick kiss to Shuta's cheek. How are you this morning? My cheek hurts. Nii-chan decided he wanted to poke my cheek a little harder than usual to wake me up this morning. Shoyuta rubbed his cheek. He pokes you awake. Can he get any purer? Nemuri sniffed, wiping away a fake tear. He is a beam of sunshine. We don't deserve him. Hisashi nodded and agreed. Shoyuta shook his head, taking out the other card. Nii-chan told me to give you this. Shoyuta said. Hisashi took it and also read it so Shoyuta couldn't see. He simply nodded and put the card in his bag. You're not going to tell me either, are you? Shoyuta asked. Either? Hisashi repeated. Nemuri beamed. I got a card too. So? She smirked. Hisashi just nodded. I'm game. Great. Let's just get to class. Shoyuta sighed, wondering what the cards had said. So, you will help with this too? I know it's a big ask. Inko spoke to her coworkers during their break. Of course, sweetheart. This is a brilliant idea. Any of his friends coming? Shoji asked. Izuku met some of his friends yesterday. Remember the news spoke about that villain attack? Inko said. They nodded. Well, Izuku's daycare were out, and we're in the area. Oh gosh. Is Aizawa okay? Nagata looked worried. He ran, and found himself outside Yui. The principal found him, and took him to Shutakuin. Inko explained. The school allowed Izuku to spend the rest of the day there too. He had a lot of fun. Anyway, he mad invitations to Shuta's boyfriend and someone he refers to as Nii-chan. Izuku has adopted another sibling. Shoji giggled. He is just a sweetheart. Besides, helping means we'll get to see that bundle of sunshine again. Haruta smirked. Like this mama? Izuku asked, setting out placemats on the table. Just like that. Inko nodded, smiling proudly. Izuku carefully made sure they looked okay, his tongue poking from his lips. Wow, super neat work, Nii-chan. Hisashi beamed. Izuku smiled and nodded. Neat work makes it easy. He replied. Neat work definitely makes things easier. Hisashi nodded in agreement. Inko had asked Shoyuta to go there. shops as they were out of a few things, he had happily accepted the task. It was just a ruse to give them a little more time to get ready. Hisashi, Izuku and Nomuri were working on getting everything set up, whilst Inko and Shoji were cooking. Haruta and Nagata were bringing some things, and will hopefully get back before Shoyuta did. Nii-chan, need help? Izuku tugged on Nomuri's skirt. I have surprise for Nii-chan but need help. Let's see what I can help with, okay? Nomuri smiled. Inko glanced over and chuckled as Hisashi complained loudly about how he wanted to help too. He's got quite the followers. Shoji giggled, also watching them. Nomuri and Hisashi advising Izuku to use a ridiculous amount of glitter, which Izuku was clearly taking to heart. Happy face carrot. Shoyuta jumped when he walked in to see everyone. Izuku burst into giggles. Nii-chan's back. Nii-chan. He collided into Shuta's legs, hugging it tight. Welcome, we have a party. A party? What for? Shoyuta asked. Today is the first-month anniversary of you meeting us. Izuku wanted to celebrate it. Inko explained. Shoyuta looked down at Izuku, who beamed back. Surprise. He said, Are you surprised? Very, thank you. Shoyuta knelt down so he could hug Izuku back. The toddled gasped happily and clung to Shuta's shoulders. Nii-chan, Daisuke. Izuku told him. Aizawa smiled and hugged him tightly. So, what were those cards this morning? He asked. Izuku began giggling. Invitations. Izuku smiled. So Nii-chan and Zashi-chan could come. We got personalized invitations and told to keep it a secret. Hisashi smirked. I made you something too. Izuku gasped, rushing off. It gave Shoyuta time to sit down next to Hisashi. Izuku came back with a card covered with silver and gold glitter. That's a lot of glitter, Shoyuta stated. Yep, Zashi-chan and Nii-chan said adds lots of glitter, make it sparkle. Izuku bounced up and down. I picked colors from your hero costume. The scarf and glasses. Did they now? Shoyuta looked at Hisashi and Nomuri as they both glanced away. Yep. Like it? Izuku asked. Yes, thanks Zu. Shoyuta smiled. Happy face carrot. For the most part, the party was more chilled, more like a little family get-together, which was nice. Izuku had wormed Nomuri and Hisashi into playing one of his educational card games that had something to do with shopping. Shoyuta acted as the referee, smirking as Izuku was quickly able to get in the lead. Inko sat speaking with her friends. They had happily introduced themselves to Shoyuta. Almost 2 hours in, there was a knock at the door. Inko frowned slightly. Expecting someone? Yes. No. Inko got up and headed to the door. Izuku was quick to follow after her, but Shoyuta had grabbed him, and they watched from the kitchen door. Inko glared as she opened the door. Hi, Inko. A man smiled. Shoyuta took into the mass of black curls on the man's head, not too dissimilar to Izuku's, much like the freckles. He could only assume that this was Izuku's father. Izuku looked so very confused at the man. Mama? He asked. The man turned and took in Shoyuta holding Izuku. Shoyuta tightened his grip on Izuku, also glaring at the man. Huh, found someone younger, I see. The man stated. They are my sons. If you really want to know, now go away. I never want to see your face around here again. Inko told him, voice icy. Without me even spending a little time with my son? The man said. Inko's hands balled into fists. You didn't want anything to do with him. Why should I let you now? Inko asked. She glanced at Shoyuta. Shoyuta, could you take Izuku into the living room? Mama. Izuku looked at her worriedly. It's okay, sweetheart. She smiled. Shoyuta carried him into the living room. Hisashi and Nomuri looked concerned. Who's at the door? Hisashi asked. I can't believe that BSD came back. Shoji scowled. Just to show up as quickly as he left. That's Zu's dad, isn't it? Shoyuta frowned. Nagata nodded. Midoriya Hisashi. Surprising that he actually took Inko's family name instead of her taking his. Nagata scowled. You kids stay in here. He got up and joined Inko at the door. If that's Zu-chan's dad, and he left because he didn't want a son, why is he back now? Hisashi asked. It doesn't make any sense. Maybe not, if you don't know that Izuku has been labeled as gifted. He is much further ahead in his development than others his age, meeting all usual baby milestones early, Shoji explained. Aki-sensei say I may manifest my quirk early too. Izuku added happily. So, he could be back so he could use Izuku as an example that his own son is the most gifted in this area? Nemuri muttered before growling. That's sick. But it happens all the time. Haruta said. People look for those with powerful, flashy quirks. Some child have a hybrid quirk of their parents. Hisashi breathes fire. Inko has a telekinesis quirk. Imagine if the two mixed. That would be powerful. Hisashi muttered. I don't want a fire quirk, Izuku pouted. You don't get a choice in your quirk, Zuchan. Your quirk will manifest and you'll only find out once it has. Shoyuta told him. Izuku flinched as voices raised from the hall. Izuku turned and cuddled into Shoyuta, burying his face into Shuta's chest. It's okay, Zuchan. Shoyuta rubbed his back. The voices were two males, Hisashi and Nagata, but they could all hear Inko trying to calm them. Think we should intervene? Hisashi frowned at Nemuri and Shoyuta. We have provisional licenses and can act. Only if it goes too far. If he uses his quirk, then we'll get involved. Nemuri replied. Or, I can give a call to my internship mentor, ask to send a little help? Wait until quirk usage, then we have a reason for heroes to act. Shoyuta said. Logical. Izuku mumbled, peeking a look up at Shoyuta, who nodded. That's the logical action. Shoyuta agreed. Izuku let out a squeak when Inko's voice raised above the rest. Demanded Hisashi, just get away from my house. You're not welcome here. And Izuku is going nowhere with you. Inko was obviously trying to keep her voice down. Just hand him over. Hisashi snarled back. Shoyuta wrapped his arms protectively around Izuku. Hisashi and Nemuri were just getting to their feet when a new voice joined in, calm, yet had a tone of authority. Is everything okay? The new voice asked. This man bothering Midoriya-san? He is trying to take my friend's son. Nagata immediately said. He's my son too. Hisashi added. You ran away as soon as you found out we divorced. I just want you gone. Inko demanded. If you don't live here, sir, I do advise you leave. If you don't want to, I will happily call my friend working in the police force to take you away. The new voice said kindly, but the threat oh so clear. They could hear Hisashi grumbled, before he fell silent. Has he gone? Izuku whispered, hand clutching Shuta's shirt tightly. I think so. Shoyuta nodded. Hisashi moved closer to them and rubbed Izuku's back lightly to help him calm down a little. The voices were more hushed now, before the sound of the door closely caused everyone to sigh in relief. Nagata and Inko returned, and new man followed behind them. Mama! Izuku jumped from Shoyuta and ran to his mother. She picked him up and hugged him close. It's okay, I'm okay. Inko told him, before sighed. Sorry you all had to hear that. You didn't know he was going to show up. Haruta told her. Besides, it just means we're all additional witnesses. Hisashi added, you should really think about getting a restraining order on him, ma'am. He clearly is a danger to both you and Zuchan. It would be the safest thing to do. Nemuri nodded. His family could probably help him get past it though. Inko sighed, his brother seems to be the same way. Well, I have good standing with the police force. I will make sure it will go through without a hitch. The man smiled. And who are you? Shoji asked, eyeing the man suspiciously. Oh, this is Yagi Tashinori. We met a week or so ago when I was taking some paperwork to the police. Inko said. It was good thing you were passing. I am always happy to lend a hand. Yagi smiled. Izuku was watching him with curiosity. Number 2. Izuku said, as if he had just decided something. Number 2. Yagi looked at the kid in confusion. You're number 2, All Might 3 and Nii-chan 1. Izuku explained happily. Inko chuckled lightly. You have been promoted to his second favorite hero. Inko told him, before she turned to Izuku. Why is he number 2? He save you. Izuku looked up at his mother, the ghost of tears echoed in his eyes. Oh, Zuzu, nothing bad would have happened. I promise. Inko said, rubbing his back. Izuku snuggled into her embrace. Pinky. Yes. I pinky promise. Inko nodded. Your little brother really is the purest thing on this earth. Hizashi nudged Shoyuta with a smile. Shoyuta could help but agree. Izuku woke up as he did every morning before, running into Shuta's room to wake him. Nii-chan. Izuku stopped by his bed. Shuta's breath was uneven, his face covered with sweat. Nii-chan. Izuku put his hand on Shuta's cheek, before frowning. Ik. He determined and went to his mom, who was just getting up. Mama. Ik. He said. You're sick. Inko looked at him concerned. Izuku shook his head fiercely, his curls bouncing. Nii-chan. Ik hot. Izuku told her. Inko quickly got up to check on Shoyuta. Shoyuta was roused from his sleep as Inko placed her hand to his forehead. He began. Shush, it's okay. You have a fever, so you are to stay in bed, okay? Inko told him. Shoyuta looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He just sighed and closed his eyes. Mama. Izuku looked up at her. Let's go downstairs, okay? We need to get medicine. Inko said. Izuku nodded. Whilst Inko was getting the medicine, she made a call to her workplace to let them know she would be staying at home to take care of Shoyuta, before placing a call to Yui. Hello, this is Principal Nizu, whom I ask is calling. The call was answered. Hi, I'm Midoriya Inko, Shuta's mother. Inko said without missing a beat. I'm just ringing to say Shoyuta has a fever and won't be making it in today. Ah, thank you for the warning, Midoriya-san. I will make sure his teachers know, and I am sure his friends will collect any work he needs to do. Nizu replied. Thank you, I hope you have a nice day. Inko smiled. You too, Midoriya-san. Nizu said. The call ended. Izuku looked up at his mom, holding on to the medicine. Let's go and give Shoyuta some medicine. She smiled. Izuku puffed out his checks and nodded. Make Nii-chan not ick anymore. He nodded. Izuku watched his mother give Shoyuta medicine and a small sip of water, as he stood by the door looking in worried. Thanks, Mom, Shoyuta muttered tiredly. Inko smiled softly. Get some rest now. Inko pet his head, before leaving the room with Izuku, slowly closing the door behind her. Is Nii-chan better now? Izuku asked. No, we have to let him rest. Inko shook her head. Izuku looked thoughtful. Would a car make him better? Izuku inquired. I am sure it will. Should go make him one? Inko smiled. Me do it. Me make Nii-chan not ick anymore. Izuku told her, heading to his room, mostly likely to grab his colors. Inko smiled. She had 2 caring boys and she loved them more than anything. Izuku sat in the living room working on a get well card for Shoyuta, covering the card in red hearts, then colored them in yellow. Like Zashi-chan's hair mama. Izuku had told her proudly. Inko sat on the computer looking up how to file for a restraining order. Officer Tsukachi sent her an email saying he could pile the paperwork together so only she would have to sign it if she could come and collect it or have someone to do it for her. Inko sighed. You okay, Mama? Izuku asked. Yes, sweetie, just fine. Inko nodded. She then thought of someone. She picked up her phone and sent a message to her newest contact. Inko, I am sorry to bother you, but are you free at all? Tashinori. Yes. Do you need help with something? Inko, Officer Tsukachi has the restraining order paperwork for me, but Shoyuta is ill. So I am at home looking after him and can't get them. Tashinori, I will be happy to pick them up. Inko, thank you so much. Tashinori, it's no trouble at all. I can get them to you in about an hour. Until then. Inko smiled and let out a sigh of relief. Izuku peeked up from his card. Mama happy. Because I have someone willing to help me. Inko got up and sat next to him and smiled at his card. Is it Shoji-san? She funny? Izuku asked. No, it was your number 2 hero. Inko told him. Yagi-san? Is Yagi-san coming? Izuku smiled brightly. Yep, in about an hour. Inko nodded. Can I make him a card too? Izuku asked. If you really want to. Inko smiled. Finish Nii-chan's first. Izuku got back to working on the card. Inko ruffled his curls, smiling softly as he worked. Tashinori, surprised to see you here. Tsukachi smiled at his friend. I am just doing a favor for Midoriya-san. Yagi said, her son is ill, so I am here to pick up those restraining order forms for her. Right, they are right here. Tsukachi got out a folder of paperwork. We have already sent a warning to Midoriya Hisashi, so he knows to keep away, even whilst this is being processed. We believed it was right to do so. If he tries to get close, we will act to stop him. But thanks. I better get these to her. Yagi took the file. Tell her to get them back to us as soon as possible. Tsukachi told him. I will. See you later. Yagi headed off, heading towards the Midoriya residence. It wasn't long before he bumped in a certain burning hero. Ah, Todoroki. Yagi greeted. The flame hero, Endeavor, glared at him. Haven't seen you in these parts before. What are you doing here? I am here to see my sister-in-law, who thinks she has the right to keep my brother from his son. Todoroki snarled. Yagi stopped and frowned. Your brother, what's his name? Yagi asked carefully. Hisashi, why? Todoroki glared at him. Yagi sighed. Take this advice, Todoroki. Keep away from the Midoriyas. Yagi told him. Todoroki smirked. So, you know. I was lucky to be passing as this brother of yours was demanding for little Izuku to be handed over. Yagi replied. He ran from his fatherly responsibilities before they had begun. So, take my advice and keep away. I will be watching over them. The two men glared at each other, before Todoroki scoffed and stormed away. Yagi decided it would be best to hurry to the Midoriya's house and inform Inko of this. Yagi-san. Izuku seemed to magically appear before the man the moment Inko opened the door. Young Midoriya, for your safety, you might want to be inside. Yagi urged him in. Both Inko and Izuku seemed confused. Did something happen? I bumped into that brother-in-law of yours, Yagi said. Inko froze. It's okay. I gave him a warning. He knows I will be keeping an eye on this place, so they wouldn't dare do anything. That man has a terrifying temper. Inko said. They moved to the kitchen. Inko bussing herself in the kitchen as Yagi took a seat. Izuku had run into the living room. Back in high school we all compared him to a volcano, except my old mentor, who compared him to a 4-year once, seeing how he used his quirk. Yagi chuckled at the memory. Seems like a fair comparison. Inko smiled. She placed a cup of tea down for herself and Yagi. Izuku tugged on the man's shirt. Yagi glanced down, to find Izuku holding out a card. Thank you. Yagi smiled. He felt his smile grow at the drawing of a rabbit with droopy ears on the card. He opened it. Thank you, Yagi-san. Was written inside. Like it? Izuku asked. I love my boy, thank you so much, Yagi smiled. Izuku flushed with pride and went back into the living, but only to bring his things to the table, so he could sit with the adults whilst doing his own thing. When Shoyuta finally roused from the dream world himself, the mid-morning sun was fighting its way past the curtains. He could hear noises downstairs, which he assumed to be Izuku and Inko. He allowed himself a few moments of just lying there, until he pushed himself up. He was feeling so much better than earlier. He stretched as he noticed a handmade get-well card, obviously made by Izuku. He smiled slightly, before getting up and going to the bathroom before heading downstairs. Inko was making lunch in the kitchen. Yagi was sitting at the table whilst Izuku was telling him all about the heroes he saw of TV. Izuku looked up and beamed. Nii-chan. Izuku getting off his chair and running to him. Shoyuta knelt to catch Izuku into a hug. You better? Did the card work? Yeah, the card worked. Shoyuta told. Izuku giggled happily and hugged him tightly. Are you feeling up to trying to eat something? Inko asked. I'm making some miso soup with white rice. I'll try a little bit. Shoyuta nodded. Izuku took hold of his hand and dragged him to the table. Yagi smiled at Shoyuta. Good to see you're looking at least a little better. Yagi commented. Thanks, Shoyuta muttered with a yawn. Though now he thought about it, what was Yagi doing here? Midoriya-san needed the forms to get a restraining order on her ex. Seeing how you were ill, She asked if I could pick them up for her. Yagi explained, probably seeing the confused look on his face. Ah, that's good. Shoyuta said. Means Mama is safe. Izuku smiled happily, doodling in a new notebook. Means you're safe too. Shoyuta told him. Izuku nodded. Shoyuta glanced at what she doing. Izuku noticed and pushed the notebook at him. I'm doing hero work, he said proudly. I see. Shoyuta could make out drawings of different heroes, one on each page. I'm add about their quirks. Izuku pointed at the clear places, but need to learn first. Do you know what you want to write now? Write it for you. Shoyuta offered. Izuku looked at him with a bright smile and nodded. Yep, Nii-chan help. Izuku nodded. So, who first? Shoyuta asked. All Might. Izuku smiled. All right then. Shoyuta turned to the All Might page. Yagi held out a pen. Shoyuta gratefully accepted it. Thanks. Now, what should I write? Hero name All Might. Don't know age. Strength enhancement quirk. Izuku told him. You mean strength enhancement? Shoyuta asked. I said that. Izuku nodded. Shoyuta smiled and wrote it down. Anything else? Smile makes people happy. Izuku added, bouncing up. And then inspires people. Inspires. Shoyuta said simply, writing it down. That it? Izuku said, watching Shoyuta write. That's it? Yes. All Might very secret on TV. Doesn't tell his quirk. Izuku nodded. Like how Nii-chan will need to be secret. I see. Shoyuta smiled. So, the next one? Ectoplasm. Izuku turned the page. He made clones from his mouth. Shoyuta began writing as Izuku began talking about it. You're quite clever, young Midoriya. Yagi commented with a smile after Izuku finished talking. Izuku is gifted. Inko smiled, bringing over bowls of miso soup and rice. Let me help you with that. Yagi got up and helped Inko carry over the bowls. Shoyuta put the notebook to the side as they got ready to eat. Yummy! Izuku smiled. Shoyuta smiled at him. If you don't feel like eating it all, Shoyuta sweetie, you don't have to. Inko told him. He nodded. Thank you. Shoyuta said. Luckily he was able to stomach the light meal. Beside him, Izuku was practically shoveling his own Milo down, getting rice stuck to his checks. Shoyuta got a bit of tissue and wiped his cheeks. Thank you, Nii-chan. Izuku smiled happily, before going back to eating. Not so fast, Izuku, you'll get ill. Inko told him. Izuku slowed down a bit. After both Shoyuta and Izuku had finished, the two boys yawned at the same time. Inko smiled at the two of them. Maybe you two should go and take a nap, you both look tired. Nap with Nii-chan. Izuku yawned. He reached out and clutched Shuta's shirt. Okay, nap with me. Shoyuta agreed, picking him up. Instead of going to his room, Shoyuta decided to nap on the sofa, with Izuku lying on his chest. Yagi and Inko watched them with soft smiles. Inko pulled out a Polaroid camera and took a picture. She planned to add it to their photo album. You have two good boys there, Midoriya-sen. Kage said. Thank you. Inko smiled in reply. Hey, Shoyuta, are you free this weekend? Tensei asked one lunch. Shoyuta looked up at him. No, Mom wants me to babysit Zoo. She's going out with a friend. Shoyuta shook his head. Tensei, Namuri and Hizashi stared at him. Shoyuta looked back at them. What? You just called Inko-san Mom. Hizashi said. Shoyuta began to blush. No, it's good thing. Just took us by surprise. Well, anyway, I am meant to be babysitting Tenya this week. Why not make it a playdate? Tensei's suggestion. Sure, what? Not bring him over to mine. I know Mom won't mind. Shoyuta said. We can all meet up. Namuri smiled. I want to see the little bee again, and we need to meet little Tenya. Well, Izuku wouldn't mind. He's like an extreme people person. Shoyuta took a bite of his katsudon. So, he is basically your polar opposite. Hizashi smirked. It's a mystery how he wormed his way into your heart. He called me Nii-chan nonstop, made cards saying he loved me, and looked at me with eyes that have their own star systems. Shoyuta gave him a look. Yeah, that's one way to get into someone's heart. Hizashi nodded. So, we're all meeting up to see Izuku and Tenya's playdate? Tensei asked. They all nodded. Shoyuta smiled and sent a message to Inko to tell her about it. Of course she was fine with it. Izuku was filled with nervous energy, running back and forth on the day of the playdate. Inko was trying to calm him as she was waiting for Yagi to come and pick her up. Izuku had brought down toys, teddies, paper and pens. He was ready to share all he had, but he seemed almost afraid too. I am sure Tenya is nice, and you will have a new friend to play with. Inko told him. Izuku nodded. There was then a knock at the door. Well, I'll see you later, okay? You have fun. Inko kissed his forehead. Bye, boys. Bye, Mom. Shoyuta said. Bye-bye, Mama. Izuku waved. The two boys were left alone. Nii-chan. Here, here. Izuku tugged on Shuta's shirt as the doorbell rang. Shoyuta smiled and ruffled his hair and went to answer the door for Tensei, who was carrying Tenya, with Hizashi and Nemuri behind them. Izuku looked up at the other toddler, clinging on to Shuta's trousers. Hey there. We made it. Hizashi beamed. Zashi-chan. Nii-chan. Izuku smiled up at them. Come Zu, let's let them in. Shoyuta ruffled his hair. They moved aside and everyone came in. Izuku settled in the living room, where Tensei set his younger brother down. Tenya looked at Izuku nervously. Izuku was just as nervous. Hi, Izuku said. Hello, Tenya muttered in reply. The teens watched the two toddlers, feeling it was better for the two to try and get acquainted themselves, in their own way. Do you like heroes? Izuku asked. Tenya perked up a little and nodded. And they watched as Izuku began to show his collection of hero teddies. Tenya took hold of the teddies of his parents, who were well-known heroes. At least they found a common link between them. Tensei said, everyone like heroes, Hizashi began. Villains don't. Izuku immediately spoke out. They looked back at the toddlers. Tenya was nodding in agreement. That's true. Shoyuta said. Izuku smiled happily. The greenette turned back to Tenya and began sharing his paper, and the two of them began to draw. We should expect a lot of pictures, shouldn't we? Nemuri chuckled. The boys nodded, but each had a smile. Whilst the toddlers drew, the teens started on homework. They would send the occasional glance at the boys. Izuku and Tenya would work on a drawing, show each other, and then move on to the next one. Nii-chan. Around lunchtime, Izuku tugged on Shuta's shirt. Tenya was holding Izuku's hand, a little unsteady on his feet. Lunchtime. He said. Right. Mom left stuff for Omuris. Shoyuta got to his feet and went to the fridge, beginning to pull out what he would need. The rice was already made and would just need to be heated, whilst he could make the omelette from scratch. I'll get started. Is Omuris good for you guys? Since when have you been able to cook? Hizashi asked. Mom's been teaching me a few things. Shoyuta replied as he got to work making lunch. Tensei lifted Tenya onto a chair, as Izuku climbed onto one next to Hizashi. Omuris. Izuku smiled happily. Make it so it melts in my mouth. I'll try. Shoyuta told him. Thank you. Izuku tapped the table lightly. So, what were you two drawing? Nemuri asked the toddlers. Heroes. Tenya said. I drew Nii-chan. Izuku added proudly. And Zashi-chan and Nii-chan. You honor us, Zuhan. Hizashi placed a hand over his heart. Izuku hummed happily and looked at the homework the teens had been working on. Nii-chan. Mistake. He pointed at a maths questions on her work. Really? Nemuri looked at it, mostly to humor Izuku, then Hizashi had a look too. Yeah, really. You miscalculated. Hizashi began then stopped, before turning to Izuku. This is high-level stuff, how did you know? Izuku gave a small shrug. Work out. He replied. Okay, are we sure this kid doesn't have an intelligence quirk like Nizu? Tensei asked. But I not mine. Tenya looked up at his brother. Some people, like Hizashi-kun, are born with their quirks already manifested. Tensei explained. So, an intelligence quirk like Nizu's? Nemuri asked. Mom doesn't have anyone in her family with an intelligence quirk, and nor does his father's side. So, it is unlikely. Shoyuta said, eyes on cooking. We were talking about that possibility the other day when I was ill. So, if he does, it would mean a complete mutation of quirk genetics. Tensei muttered. What mean? Tenya looked confused. A new quirk. Unlike a mama's or papa's. Izuku answered with a large smile. The teens looked at him. Hey, Zu-chan, fancy having a look at my work? Izashi asked. You're not using Zu to get a higher mark on your homework. Shoyuta told him pointedly. No. Me help. Izuku said proudly, taking Hizashi work. Shoyuta sighed as Hizashi grinned, victoriously. You're my hero, Zu-chan. Hizashi gushed. Izuku beamed widely, flushing happily. Young Izuku seemed rather nervous this morning. Yagi commented, he and Inko were sitting in a nice cafe in the toe. They had nabbed a corner table and were enjoying their drinks. Oh yes. Shuta's friends were coming around to work on their homework. One of them was bringing along their little brother, who is around Izuku's age. Inko explained, taking a sip of her tea. Izuku gets along with most people, but he is extremely shy when meeting new people. Always worried about whether they will like him or not. I would be surprised to hear that someone doesn't like him. Yagi admitted. He seems like the kind of person it would be hard to dislike. Inko smiled at him kindly. He is always smiling and tries to keep those smiling around him. That's why he admires All Might so much. Just on his debut, he rescued thousands all with a smile on his face. Inko put a hand to her cheek. He watches that video quite often. Really? I have seen it myself. A lot of people do think it is quite scary to watch. Kagi said, I know, I am one of those people that, but Izuku, Inko stopped. Finds himself inspired to aid those with a smile himself. I am sure he will be a great hero of the future. Yagi told her. Inko smiled at that. I am sure he will, and I know if he heard you say that, it would mean the world to him. Inko said, being his number 2 hero and all that. That actually caused Yagi to choke on his tea, blushing. Inko laughed lightly, handing him a napkin, and Yagi was pretty sure her laugh was one of an angel's. You're joking? Inko gasped, rubbing her forehead. It was a day off for her, so she had been planning to spend the whole day with Izuku at the beach, and join them later. But of course, her boss had to go and ruin it all. Sorry, Inko, it came up quite suddenly, and the boss says we need everyone. Shoji told her. But I took the day off, I have no one to look after Izuku? And if things are going to be busy, I can't just bring him along and ignore him. Inko said, I know. I really am sorry, Inko, but the boss is really insisting that you need to come in. Shoji apologized. I honestly want to punch him myself, she added in a whisper. Okay, give me half an hour to try and find someone. And tell him, I am taking 2 days off for this mess up. I booked this day off 3 weeks ago. Inko ran a hand through her hair, trying to hold back her anger. On the other side of the phone, Shoji smirked. She would make sure Inko got her day off after dealing with this mess. I will, don't worry. See you in a bit. Shoji sounded so apologetic. Inko put her phone down with a heavy sigh. Mama, beach. Izuku tugged her skirt. Inko frowned and knelt down so she faced him. Work needs me and sweetie. I can't take you to the beach today. Inko said. Izuku looked down, his lower lip pouting at the news. I go with you? Yes. I'm sorry, baby, it's going to be very busy. We'll need to get someone to look after you. Inko pet his curls. Nii-chan at school. Izuku said. I know, let's see. Inko started to look through her contacts. Mitsuki has a doctor's appointment with Katsuki. Maresu is at work. Yagi-san. Izuku smiled. I am not sure if he's free, Inko muttered. She never asked him about where he worked. Either way, she dropped him a message. All Might gave his final wave to the press and his fans, before quickly leaving. Normally he would stay a little longer, but the sudden notification on his phone made him want to hurry off. He got home and out of his hero costume in no time, before checking his phone. A small smile appeared on his face as he saw the name of the message sender. Inko, I apologize if I am bothering you during work hours. But there has been a major case assigned to my workplace, and my boss wants everyone in. Unfortunately, should is at school, but the daycare is closed due to extra security measures being set in place. I am sure I may have discussed this with you before. But I can't take Izuku into work with me. Would it be possible for you to take care of him? Tashinori sighed. He did recall her mentioning how she had taken a day off work as Izuku wouldn't be in daycare, and how she had planned to take Izuku to the beach. If this was the case, and Ino was being forced into work, it meant Izuku would be unable to go to the beach, which he knew was probably upsetting for the young boy. Tashinori, I have just finished. My work doesn't have set times. I just go when I am needed. I will be more than happy to look after young Izuku. I could take him to the beach as you had planned if he still wishes to go. As that was your plan for today, right? Inko, it was, you remembered. Thank you so much, that would be amazing. I will be ever so grateful for this, and Izuku is looking forward to it. I will have everything ready for when you get here. Tashinori, I will head straight there. Inko, thank you. Tashinori grabbed a few things before heading out again. Tashinori heard Izuku before he entered the front garden of the home. Yagi-san. Yagi-san. Izuku chanted excitedly. Izuku, have you got everything ready? Swim. Izuku giggled. Yes, but you're only allowed in the water if Yagi-san has your hand. Inko told him. Okay, mama. Izuku replied, then Tashinori knocked on the door. Yagi-san. Hang on, Izuku. Inko sighed. The door opened and Tashinori found himself looking at a very stressed-out Inko. Thank you so much for this. It's no trouble at all. Tashinori assured her. Hi Yagi-san. Izuku beamed up at him. Hey there, still up for a day at the beach? Tashinori asked. Izuku nodded eagerly. Before Inko rushed off, she gave Tashinori some rules and a picnic pact. Tashinori and Izuku waved by as she hurried to work. Wish mama could come. Izuku whispered Sadie as Inko vanished. Tashinori looked down at the kid. Izuku had a wishful look. I know your mama loves you a lot. She didn't want to go to work today. She had planned the whole day to spend time with you. Tashinori gave his hand a squeeze, smiling kindly down at the toddler. Mama told you? Izuku looked up at him, green eyes meeting blue. Yeah, and she was really looking forward to it, but some bosses are mean. Tashinori smiled. How about this? We can collect shells from the beach for her. And we can make shell necklaces. I am sure she'll like them. We can do that? Izuku asked. Sure. We can collect as many shells as we can. Tashinori nodded. Izuku beamed. Find pretty ones for Mama, and for Nii-chan, and Nii-chan. We can get shells for Zashi-chan too. Shells for everyone. Izuku said. Think you got a bucket big enough? Tashinori asked. Izuku thought and nodded. Got a blue one. Izuku said. Then I think we're ready to got then. Tashinori smiled and ruffled his hair, causing him to giggle. The retired pro hero, Gran Torino frowned, looking at his watch to check the time. Tashinori was late, which was new. He had never been late before. He got out his phone and looked at Tashinori's contact, and using GPS, tracked Tashinori's location. Takoba Municipal Beach Park. Torino grumbled to himself and decided to hunt the number one hero down. It's not exactly baby Izuku and Tenya with a basket of kittens. But it is baby Izuku and Tenya with some cats. Tashinori set up the blanket on the golden sand, holding it in place with the picnic basket. Izuku struggled out of his shirt, so his was just in his swim shorts. Izuku giggled. Yagi-san. He smiled, jumping up and down, showing off his special all-might swim shorts. They look good, Izuku. Tashinori smiled. Do you want to look for the sunscreen? Mama put it in here. Izuku rushed to the picnic basket. Tashinori took of his shirt and signed. It was so warm, the sun was beating down. Got it. Izuku held it out. Good job. Tashinori smiled. He made sure Izuku was properly protected from the sun before he put some on himself. Yagi-san, your nose? Izuku pointed and giggled. Tashinori knew he probably needed to rub in the sunscreen, but decided to play with Izuku a lit. What about my nose, is it still there? He gasped. Izuku giggled. It there, Yagi-san. He smiled, his cheeks red from giggling. What a relief. Toshinori sighed. I don't know what I would do without it. Izuku giggled a little harder. Hold still, Yagi-san. Izuku told him and rubbed his nose, until he felt it was okay. He stepped back and smiled. Okay now. My hero. Toshinori smiled. Izuku smiled. Bestest hero. He agreed with a nodded. Well, number one hero, should we start looking for shells? Toshinori asked. Izuku nodded, and took hold of his blue bucket. Izuku picked up all and any shells he found in the sand. But after a while, Toshinori took hold of the bucket as it began getting a little heavy for the boy. He would continue to collect shells and put them in the bucket. Yagi-san. Izuku ran over holding a conch seashell. Listen. He held it up. Toshinori smiled, and lifted the shell to his ear. You hear the sea. You can. Why do you think that is? Toshinori asked. Is there sea stuck inside? Izuku accepted the shell when Toshinori handed it back to him. No, they say the shells echo the sounds of their past environment. Toshinori smiled. So, what you can hear is the sea of the past. Is that true? Izuku looked at him curiously. Toshinori chuckled. Does it need to be? Toshinori asked. Izuku looked at him. Confused. It's a nice story, and I like the idea of the shells reminding the past. Izuku looked at the shell in his hand. He then sat in the sand and held it to his ear. Was the sea the same back then? Izuku asked. Toshinori smiled, and sat next to him, the bucket of shells beside him. Who knows? Toshinori smiled. I like to believe it is the same. What about you? I'd like the same. Izuku looked at the shell in his hands, before looking at Toshinori. It sounds the same. Whilst things may seem like they change, but inside they are the same. You just need to listen. Toshinori smiled. Izuku smiled up at Toshinori. Try and remember that, kid. What if they sound different? Izuku asked. If they have changed both inside and out, then I am afraid they have changed completely. Toshinori said. Some people can change, whether they for change better or for worse will show from the person they become. Izuku looked out across the sea, as if thinking about Toshinori's words. Yagi-san. Yeah. Can we go swimming now? Izuku asked. Sure thing, my boy, let's put these shell over by the blanket first. Toshinori nodded. The bucket was placed next to their picnic basket. Izuku took Toshinori's hand as they headed to the sea. Izuku giggled lightly as water rushed over his feet. He stamped his feet, splashing the water a little. Cold, he said. Toshinori chuckled. He waited until the water felt a little warm. Then Izuku traveled until it reached his waist. With one hand still clinging to Toshinori, the other hand was held underwater and Izuku watched himself wiggly his fingers, giggling slightly. The sea salty, Izuku stated knowingly. Very salty. Toshinori chuckled. Did you know, there is a sea that is so salty you just float on it? Like a duck? Izuku asked with wide eyes. Yes, just like a duck. Toshinori nodded. Quack. Izuku giggled looking up at the man. You'd be a very cute little duckling. Toshinori laughed. No, Izuku shook his head. Me be big duck quace I'm green. You duckling you yellow. Very well then. Toshinori accepted it. Izuku giggled and began splashing lightly, quacking. Should we get some swimming done then? Can't swim right. Mama helps me. Izuku said. Well, I can help you. Toshinori smiled. Izuku nodded, and held both of Toshinori's hands. Gran Torino arrived at the beach. It was a lovely day, but there were few people around. He spotted Toshinori fairly easily as he walked across the sand, his blonde hair impossible to miss. As he got closer, he saw someone else with him, a child with wild, curly green hair. Since when had Toshinori had a child? Gran Torino was annoyed that Toshinori had not told him of any child, or any family at that. He continued to approach as Toshinori picked the kid from the sea, and began to head towards a blanket. Toshinori! He hollered. Toshinori stopped. Still holding the boy, they both looked at the inn. Gee, Gran Torino! Toshinori said in surprise. You were late and I got tired of waiting. Gran Torino said. Toshinori set Izuku down. We were meant. Oh shoot. I completely forgot. Toshinori mentally cussed at himself. I see you were preoccupied. Gran Torino looked down at Izuku. The boy was looking up at him. Since when have you been a dad? Izuku began to giggle. Yagi-san isn't dad. Izuku smiled. Yagi-san is Yagi-san. Gran Torino looked up at Toshinori. He's the son of a female friend I met a while back. She needed someone to watch Izuku as she was called into work unexpectedly. Toshinori quickly explained. Izuku, this is an old friend of my master, Gran Torino. Izuku gasped. A hero? Izuku whispered. A retired one kid, tell no one. Gran Torino said. Izuku gave a nod. Secret. Izuku said before he tugged on Toshinori's hand. Picnic. Care to join us? Toshinori asked. Mama makes bestest food. Izuku smiled brightly. She made mochi. Guess I could, we need to talk anyway. Torino eyed Toshinori, who nodded. They sat down to eat. Toshinori smiled at what Inko had packed. One would have thought she was feeding an army. Torino talked to Toshinori in a hushed voice as Izuku dug into a sandwich. After a while, Torino glanced at Izuku, who was peeking into the picnic basket. Yagi-san, can I have another sandwich? Izuku asked. Help yourself, kiddo. Toshinori nodded. Izuku took another sandwich and took a large bite from it, smiling happily. Seems like an all-right kid. Torino said. Heart of gold, he has. Toshinori smiled. So, a son of a friend? Torino gave him a look. Yes, a son of a friend. Toshinori nodded, looking at Torino. Remember Todoroki Enji? Yeah, Endeavor. Torino said. Him, well, Izuku is his nephew, the son of his brother Hisashi. Izuku is intellectually gifted. The kid's dad tried to take him. I promised to look over him. They're too good to be hurt by the likes of them. I see. Torino nodded, watching as Izuku, having finished his new sandwich, had gotten out mochi and was offering some to the adults with a bright smile. Chapter text. Shoyuta was sitting with his small group of friends in the canteen. His mind was straying from their conversation and to a new message on his phone. Hisashi noticed the growing frown on his boyfriend's features. You all right, Shoyuta? Hisashi asked. Something bad happen? Nemuri and Tensei also looked at him. Mom was forced into work, some big case that needs everyone on. Shoyuta muttered. Today? But didn't Inko-san book the day off? To go to the beach with Zu-chan? Hisashi frowned. Shoyuta nodded. I bet he is so disappointed. Tensei sighed. Apparently, Yagi-san has taken him instead. That's nice of him. Shoyuta switched off his phone screen and pocketed it. Yagi-san? Hisashi asked. You mean that blonde guy we all met during that party? That's him. He was the friend that went for a drink with Mom when Izuku had the play date with Tenya. Shoyuta nodded. So, basically you're saying Yagi can took Inko-san on a date? Nemuri leaned forward. Not a date, just for a drink. Shoyuta said. Sounds like a nice, slow first date to me, Shoyuta. Nemuri smirked. So, you could be getting a cool dad soon then? Tensei smiled. I give up with you all. Shoyuta shook his head. They laughed at his lack of reaction. When the end of the came, the small friendship group met outside the gates. Hisashi's hand intertwined with Shuta's as they headed towards Takoba Municipal Beach Park. Shoyuta didn't speak, content with just listening to them talk as they bounced from one topic to another, not sticking to one theme. When they reached the beach, Shoyuta looked around, hoping to spot Izuku or Yagi-san. Upon seeing the green, fluffy hair, Shoyuta led the group in the right direction. Izuku saw him coming and gasped. Nii-chan. Izuku ran over to him giggling. Hi Nii-chan. He hugged his leg. Before seeing his friends. Hi Wani-chan, Zashi-chan and Tensei-chan. Hey Zu. They greeted happily. Where's Yagi-san? Shoyuta asked. He almost shivered at the giggle Izuku gave in reply. Izuku led them to an elderly man, who was laughing at the sight of Toshinori lying down with just his head visible. I buried Yagi-san. Izuku beamed. No one should smile that brightly when stating they buried someone. Tensei whispered. Shoyuta rolled his head. You okay, Yagi-san? Shoyuta asked. I'm fine, my boy. Sand can feel heavy when it's piled on top of you, Toshinori said. It's your own fault. The older man laughed. Toshinori glared up at him. You suggested the idea, Torino. This is your fault too. Toshinori said. I think Yagi-san needs rescuing. Shoyuta told Izuku. Let's dig him out. Okay. Izuku nodded. Before sitting down and began digging, Shoyuta and Hizashi joined in as Tensei and Torino laughed at the scene. Nemuri stood back getting pictures of it, sure Inko-san would enjoy seeing them. They managed to free Toshinori's upper body when Inko joined them. Oh my, Inko covered her mouth, unable to help her smile. Looks like you've been busy. He has. Toshinori chuckled, now sitting up and digging his legs free. I think I am free enough now. With a little wiggling, Toshinori pulled himself free. He stood up completely covered with his sand. Izuku plodded over to his side. Drink, Yagi-san. Izuku held out a bottle of water. Thank you. Toshinori smiled, accepting it. Izuku then went to his mom. Mama, finished? Yep, all done. And I get to have the next 2 days off, so we can have so fun. Inko picked him up. Did you have fun? Izuku nodded. We swam in ducks. Then Izuku gasped and wiggled free and rushed to his bucket. Got shells? He came back with one. You hear the sea. Inko took it and placed it to her ear. Well, what did you know? You can. Inko smiled. She handed it back to Izuku. He nodded and showed it to the teens, expecting them to listen to it too. Inko sighed and settled on the blanket, removing her work jacket. So, how did work go? Toshinori asked. Joining her. Hectic, but we got the worst of it done. My boss mostly wanted me there because I am the best at filing and actually keeping track of the work done. I mean, anyone could have done it, Inko sighed. Of course it led to me having a word with my boss. That is fair. Oh, Inko-san, this is a friend of my old master, Grand Torino. Toshinori introduced him. Inko smiled kindly at the older man. I kind of forgot I was meant to meet him today, so he hunted me down. Oh dear. Inko began. It was my fault, I had forgotten. So, please don't blame yourself. Toshinori smiled. It's why I tell you to set reminders. Torino said. I forget to make reminders. Toshinori grumbled. We all do, Yagi-san, it's part of being human. Inko chuckled. Aji-san. Izuku called, causing the adults to look at him. Izuku rushed over with the shell, holding it out. Listen. He held it out to Torino, who was still trying to process what Izuku called him. Toshinori began laughing and Inko covered her mouth to hide her own giggles. He seems to adopt a lot of family member. Hizashi muttered. He's 1.5, let he do what he wants. Shoyuta said. Aji-san. Izuku pouted, his cheeks puffed out. Torino took the shell, having to listen to the waves himself. That's cool. He said, handing it back to the boy, who giggled and went and put it back in his bucket. He's just met me. Torino looked at Toshinori and Inko, extremely confused. He was the same with Shudakuen, calling him Nii-chan off the bat. Inko said, But, isn't he your child? It's only natural to call him Nii-chan. It was Toshinori's turn to look confused. Inko began to giggle again. Shoyuta looked surprised. You could fool a lot of people. Hizashi nudged Shoyuta, who blushed. Mom adopted me a while again. My own parents kicked me out cause they didn't like the fact I was dating another boy that met Mom and Aizu that day. Shoyuta looked anywhere but the people around him. Nii-chan stayed and we can have lots fun. Izuku added, rushing to his brother and settled on his lap. Nii-chan happy. Shoyuta blushed, deepened and ended up hiding it in Izuku's curls. Nii-chan. You've just embarrassed him, he'll get over it. Nemuri smiled. Izuku settled with that answer and cuddled into Shoyuta. Inko smiled at her boys. Can we all come here again, all together? Izuku asked. Me, Mama, Yagi-san, Nii-chan, everyone. Inko looked at Toshinori, who was quick to reply with a sure. The teens were also quick to answer yes. Then Izuku practically stared Torino down, until he realized the boy was asking if he would join them too. Sure, I guess. Torino muttered. This kid was too much, reminded him of. Great. I'm sure we'll have even more fun. Toshinori grinned. Izuku agreed with his own cheer. Was this kid really related to that Todoroki boy? 'Cause Torino was sure the kid seemed to act so much more like Toshinori. So art. All drawn by me. Shoyuta watched as Izuku set blankets and pillows in the living room. Tenya was coming around for another playdate, though it was his mother Ida Takara that was bringing him. Not only that, but a family friend of the Midoriyas had a son Izuku's age, the Bakugos, and the mother was bringing around her own son, Kaken, as Izuku called him. As much as Shoyuta would like to stay and watch his brother play with his friends, he and Hisashi had a pre-planned date, and one he was quite looking forward to it too. Nii-chan, help please. Izuku tugged on his shirt. What with? Shoyuta looked down at him with a small smile. Toys and colors. Izuku said. Shoyuta gave a small nod, getting from his seat to help his younger brother in bringing down his toys. Shoyuta was helping Izuku set up his toys in the play area he had created with his blankets when there was a knock. Inko went to open the door. Shoyuta could talking with happy tones. He looked up as Inko re-entered the room. Behind her was a woman with blonde spiked hair. Izuku looked up, beaming. Kaken. Izuku cheered, with a slight chuckle. The woman, who Shoyuta assumed was Bakugo Mitsuki, placed her son down on the blankets. Izuku happily wrapped his arms around the other boy. Shoyuta rose to his feet as Izuku began chatting happily. Shoyuta, this is my friend Bakugo Mitsuki. Mitsuki, this is Shoyuta. It's so good to finally meet you. Mitsuki beamed at him. Inko told me everything well, almost everything. All good things though. Shoyuta blushed slightly. It's nice to meet you. Shoyuta nodded politely. We definitely need to meet up often, Inko-chan. Katsuki has been muttering Izuku-chan to himself for a while now. Mitsuki turned to her friend. A few more words were exchanged when another knock at the door came. It'd be Hisashi and the Idas. I'll get it. Shoyuta said. Sure enough, he opened the door to see Hisashi and the Idas. We made it. Hisashi beamed, before quickly sweeping Shoyuta into his arms and held him close. Ida Takara giggled with a soft smile. You are looking so much better now, Aizawa-kun, so much happier. She smiled, reminding when she first met the dark-haired boy, and a sadness that seemed to echo around him. That had gone now, and he looked more rested. Thanks, but I go by Midoriya Shoyuta now. Did Tensei mention I was adopted? Fifth. He mentioned a new family. I hadn't known you had been officially. Well, Midoriya-kun, I'm glad you found a place to be safe. Takara smiled. Zun, Tenya muttered. He could hear the other boy in the living room. Oh, please come in, everyone is in the living room. Shoyuta stepped aside, untangling himself from Hisashi arms. The blonde boy showed Takara into the living room. Shoyuta shut the door before joining them. Izuku had quickly gotten up to hug Hisashi, who had happily picked him up, and the two seemed to go into a match to see who could give the hardest hug, and after Takara put Tenya down, Izuku scrambled from Hisashi's arms to give the boy a hug. Tenya-chan. This way. Kaken is here to play too. Izuku happily told him. The three mothers awed quietly as they watched the three boys sitting together happily talking and Izuku sharing his toys with them all. After they introduced themselves, the mothers settled in the dining hall to have tea and talked. Hisashi took Shuta's hand and beamed, before they headed to the door. Oh, are you off now? Inko noticed them. Yeah. Shoyuta nodded. Have fun, boys. Inko smiled. Bye, Nii-chan. Izuku cheered happily, causing him to crack a small smile as they left. The three mothers were talking quite happily, until Inko felt a small tug on her skirt. She looked down to see Izuku with a determined look. Mama, Tekken and Kaken are thirsty. Drink please. Izuku said. Inko smiled and nodded. I'll bring in the drink with some snacks, okay? Inko told him. Okay, thank you, Mama. Izuku hugged her leg, before rushing back to his friends. I can't wait for Katsuki to go through his loving stage. Mitsuki sighed. At the moment, he hates being hugged by anyone but Izuku. Tenya is quite loving, but mostly towards Tensei. When he's not working, they are pretty much inseparable. Takara said. Izuku never seems to run out of love, for everyone and anyone. Inko smiled softly. But I am afraid it could get him into danger. She got up to make drinks and snacks. True, maybe he needs a father figure, but from what I've heard, he may have one soon. Mitsuki smirked at her. What are you talking about? Inko gave her a look as she peeled oranges. Well, I have a friend that saw Izuku with a blonde man at the beach. Did his dad come back? Mitsuki asked. Oh no, that's Yagi Tashinori, he's just a friend. Inko told her, getting a little flustered. They told me they got along like a father and son. Is there any chance of him being even more than a friend? Mitsuki smirked. Inko went bright red. Mitsuki, please, she pleaded quietly. Izuku has already adopted Yagi's mentor's friend as his grandfather. If he hears, he might just go and call Tashinori-san dad. But wouldn't that be cute? Mitsuki said. Yes it would, but still incredibly awkward. Inko muttered, taking a deep breath to calm herself as she took in the drinks and snacked to the three boys. Thank you, Mama. Izuku smiled. Hank you Ani Inc. Kaken said, taking a sippy up. Hank you. Tenya also took a cup. Inko put the plate of orange on the table and left them to play. Ani, now that's cute. Takara giggled lightly. The talk turned back to their boys. So, Hisashi muttered. Shoyuta looked up from his drink and eyes the nervous-looking Hisashi. You have a question, what is it? Shoyuta asked. I know it's none of my business, but how is everything between Yagi-san and your mom? Hisashi said. You're right, it's none of your business. Shoyuta agreed. Hisashi looked away. But I think he likes her. You think? Hisashi looked back at him. Shoyuta was stirring his drink slowly with a thoughtful expression. But, he reminds me of how you acted not long before asking me out. Shoyuta muttered. He gets along great with Izuku and is always there to lend a hand if needed. He sounds and seems like a great guy. Hisashi said. I know, but I am worried, Shoyuta frowned. That it's an act. That he just intends to use her. Hisashi sighed. Shoyuta nodded. Well, maybe you should confront him about, tell him if he hurts her you won't let him walk away without repercussions. Hisashi smiled. I am going to be a hero, Zashi. Threatening him won't exactly help my cause, especially as I am only a first year. And 15 at that, how will a 15-year-old make him regret hurting her? Shoyuta gave him a look. Just warn him, Shoyuta. It will let him know that you mean to protect your family. Hisashi took Shuta's hands in his. I am sure nothing bad will happen. Shoyuta hummed and smiled at Hisashi slightly. You're right. He agreed. Hisashi beamed and leaned in for a kiss. A piece of fan art made by Pankikibara. You can find her one Tumblr, https, pankeibara.tumblr.com. Yagi-san. Yagi-san. Izuku stood bouncing by the window, waiting for him to arrive. You're going to bump your head. Shoyuta placed his hand on the head of curls to stood him jumping. But Yagi-san. Izuku pointed out of the window. Shoyuta chuckled and ruffled his hair. I know, but banging your head won't be nice. He'll still see you if you are just standing there. Shoyuta smiled. Izuku puffed out his cheeks, but nodded. He continued to look out of the window, waiting for Yagi-san. Shoyuta went into kitchen, where Inko was cooking yakisoba, with some white rice and miso soup. Do you need a hand? Fifth. That would be lovely. Could you check the miso soup? Inko smiled. Sure. Shoyuta checked on the soup. Next to him, Inko began humming happily. Tashinori was cussing slightly. As he tightened the bandage around his arm, he wasn't a master at taking care of wounds, but it was some of his best work yet. But he couldn't help but wonder if it was still a good idea to go to the Midoriyas for dinner when he still had to heal from his injuries. Yet the very thought of upsetting young Izuku like that, or his mother, made him rethink canceling. So, making sure his injuries were bound up or plastered, he headed out. The trip to the Midoriyas seemed a lot shorter than usual, and a smile crossed his features as he saw Izuku happily waving at the window. He raised a hand and waved back. Izuku beamed before vanishing. He hurried to the front door, as it was opened by Shoyuta. "Good evening." Shoyuta nodded, letting him pass. "Evening." Tashinori gave him a smile, stepping in, only for something to collide with his legs. He fought to keep his balance, but in the end he fell onto his backside. Izuku giggled at him, clinging to his leg. "Zuchan." Shoyuta sighed, but Tashinori could see he was trying not to laugh. Hi Yagi-san." Izuku beamed happily. "Hello my boy, can I get up please?" He smiled. Izuku nodded and let him go. Tashinori pushing himself to his feet. "Villains tried so hard to bring me down. If only they knew they needed a child like Izuku," he thought. Once he was up, Izuku grabbed him hand and began to drag him into the living room. Tashinori could hear Shoyuta sniggering as he closed the door. "Mama, Yagi-san here," he called. "That's good, dinner is almost ready." Inko replied. "Please make yourself at home Yagi-san." As soon as Tashinori settled onto the sofa, Izuku rushed off only to return with a picture. "I draw the day on the beach," Izuku told him proudly. Tashinori chucked at the picture he could make out himself. Izuku had gave him curls in bright yellow and buried up to his neck in orange sand. "Like it Yagi-san?" Izuku asked. "Very much so my boy, thank you." Tashinori smiled. Izuku giggled happily, settling down at the small coffee table to draw some more. Tashinori was sure he could make out Gran Torino in one of them. He was sure that would make his day. Tashinori found himself holding a pile of pictures made by Izuku. He hadn't noticed that Izuku was looking at him. Izuku had caught sight of the bandage on his arm. Izuku stopped drawing and climbed onto the sofa next to Tashinori. The man watched him curiously, before frowning as Izuku lifted up the sleeve to get a better look at his bandage. "You hurt, Yagi-san," he pouted. "I'm okay, it's not that bad," Tashinori assured him. But, unfortunately for him, Izuku was a sensitive soul with a good heart. He got off the sofa, rushing to where his mother was to tell her, "Rain hurt." Inko peeked out of the kitchen to eye Tashinori. "I was injured a little at work, it's no big deal." Her eyes narrowed suspiciously. She vanished for a moment, before coming into the living room with a first aid kit. "Let me have a look." That's not necessary," Tashinori told her. "No point trying to stop Mom." Shoyuta called from the kitchen. Tashinori sighed and let Inko look at his arm. Izuku had come back into the room, clutching an All Might doll to his chest. Inko carefully wrapped his arm up in a new bandage. "Okay, anywhere else?" she asked, in a tone similar to that of recovery girls. Tashinori gulped back his fear. Inko was just as terrifying. "Just my left leg." He quickly answered so. Inko knelt down and motioned for him to move his trouser leg. Tashinori and did as he was told, wincing a little, something Inko didn't miss. "Just hold still." Inko told him calm. Tashinori felt himself relax a little under her care. Inko took care when unwrapping his leg. Izuku's eyes glistened with tears as he saw Tashinori in pain. Inko was soon wrapping up his injury again. "There, Yagi-san is okay now Aizu, but try not to touch his injuries." Izuku gave a small nod. Inko placed a kiss on his forehead, before pointing at Tashinori. "You are not to move from that place, you need rest." "Yes ma'am," Tashinori said. Inko gave him a sweet smile. Tashinori fought down a blush. Returned to the kitchen, Izuku watched Tashinori nervously before quietly climbing up to sit next to him. Tashinori glanced down at the child who had leaned on him carefully, his curly head resting against his side. "I'm okay, kiddo." He ruffled his hair. Izuku looked up at him tearfully. Tashinori felt his life lose a few years. He made the boy cry. "Come here." Tashinori wrapped his arm around Izuku's shoulders, cuddling him close. Izuku buried his face into Tashinori's side. Inko and Shoyuta came in with their dinners on trays, as Tashinori comforted the emotional boy. Izuku sniffed, then sat back, looking at Tashinori with wide eyes. "No hurt no more," Izuku said in a pleading tone. "I can't make a promise on that, my work can get dangerous. But I will try, and if I am hurt, I will come and see you to make me better." Tashinori told him. Izuku looked at him, his head pinged to the side slightly. Me make you better? He repeated. Tashinori nodded. Izuku sniffed and again, cuddling into the blonde man once more. Izuku, you're going to have to sit down here to eat your dinner. Inko said. No table? Izuku asked. No, we need to make sure Tashinori-san stays put to rest. Inko nodded. Izuku patted Tashinori's arm. Stay, Yagi-san. Izuku moved before his dinner and blew on it to cool down. They sat in a comfortable silence eating with the occasional talk, mostly Izuku asking some sort of question and either Inko, Tashinori or Shoyuta answering. When dinner was over and Tashinori planned to return home, he was stopped by Izuku sitting on his lap. Yagi-san need rest to be better. Stay. The boy told him, his freckled cheeks puffing at slightly. And Tashinori knew one very simple thing. He couldn't say no to this boy. So that's how he found himself lying on the sofa with Izuku curling up on his chest like a cat. Shoyuta went to grab one of Izuku's blankets, returning with an all-might one. Tashinori was well and truly stuck. Inko bade them good night, before giving Tashinori a pointed look that clearly told him to stay put. So, there he lay, with little Izuku curled up on his chest, sleeping peacefully. He frowned slightly. Is this how people felt when they wanted to get up when a cat was on them? He waited at least an hour before even trying. He couldn't burden the Midoriyas with his injuries when Inko had two boys to look after. Tashinori slowly tried to lift Izuku off him but found that the boy was clutching his shirt in an iron grip. There was no escaping. He settled back down, wrapping an arm around the sleeping child so he could roll off accidentally and hurt himself. Tashinori slowly fell asleep himself. When Inko came down the next morning, she found Tashinori right where she left him, but now Aizu was clinging to his arm like a koala, whilst Tashinori's free arm was wrapped protectively around the boy. She smiled kindly and headed into the kitchen, and that's when her thoughts turned to Tashinori's injuries. Didn't All Might receive similar injuries in his fight 2 days ago? Inko shook her head. That was nonsense. Tashinori didn't even look like All Might. Grant they both had brilliant yellow hair and blue eyes that seemed to glow kindly, and she stopped. She stepped back into the living to survey Tashinori quietly. There were a few similarities. The major difference was the hairstyle and the whole structure of his body. All Might was a lot bulkier. Was it possible? Inko shook her head as she saw Tashinori beginning to wake. Good morning. She greeted. Tashinori glanced over at her tiredly. Morning. Tashinori yawned. He looked down at Izuku wrapped around his arm. Inko watched in stunned silence at how gently Tashinori got up holding her baby close as he got to his feet. Is he usually this clingy? Oh, no, not like that. He was just worried about you so he wanted to stay close. Inko explained. He's a very caring child. Tashinori glanced down at him. He loves everyone, wants to help everyone. It is so sweet, but Inko stopped. Worrying? Tashinori asked. She nodded. People could take advantage of him, and he would never know. Inko sighed. Sorry, I shouldn't be. It's fine. You help me. If you need someone to talk to, I will be happy to listen. Tashinori smiled. Inko blushed lightly. Well, would you like some tea? Inko asked. Love some. Tashinori said. Izuku squirmed slightly in his embrace and yawned widely. Inko was about to tell him morning, but Izuku snuggled back into Tashinori. Papa, he mumbled, caused Tashinori blush deeply. Inko also blushed, but giggled lightly. Welcome to the family. She told him teasingly, before heading into the kitchen, pressed a hand to her cheek which were warm. She took a deep breath and began bussing herself with making tea. Edit. I forgot to post a little comic strip I made for this chapter. So here it is. Towel? What? Yep. Tashinori nodded. Plates? Yep. Glasses and a sippy cup for Izuku? Yep. Food and drink? Yes, you sure make a lot. Tashinori chuckled. Well, it means we won't run out. Inko smiled. Izuku, have you got your swimming trunks? She called. Izuku came running in wearing them with a nod. Have you got your Shoyuta? Yes. He replied. Hizashi and the others still coming? Yeah, they said they'll meet us there. Good, and is Torino coming? Inko glanced at Toshinori. I think hearing that Izuku wants him to be there forced his mind to agree. Toshinori chuckled. Aji-kan is coming? Izuku looked up at him excitedly. Yep, he said he'll meet us there. Toshinori nodded. Izuku squealed happily and began bounced around the room. I wish I had his energy most days. Inko smiled. I wish I had his energy all the time. Toshinori chuckled. I could probably get a lot more work done. Work? I help Zashi-chan with work. Izuku bounced and patted Toshinori's leg. Me help please. I have said my work can get dangerous. But, thank you for the offer. Toshinori ruffled his hair. Izuku pouted sadly. How about you ask Torino if you can help with his work? I am sure he works these days, he added thoughtfully. Help Aji-san. Izuku nodded and ran off giggling. Toshinori watched him go. Since the morning when Izuku had called him Papa in his sleep, Izuku had continued to call him Yagi-san. Inko saw the look on his face and gave a small smile, but did not speak up. She had no idea what she would say. Around half an hour later, they were out of the house and heading towards the beach. Toshinori was carrying the 2 picnic baskets filled with food. Inko was carrying a bag with a few large towels for people to rest on, and Shoyuta had Izuku settled on his shoulders, playing I Spy. Whilst they were setting up on the beach, the Bakugos joined them. Kaken was settled on a towel next to where Izuku was building a sandcastle. Then Hizashi, Namuri and the Ida family arrived. The group settled on the blankets. Mitsuki was introducing her husband, whilst Takara introduced hers. Izuku had been distracted by Hizashi picking him up into a tight hug. Zashi, just put him down. Shoyuta said. No, you're just jealous that Zu-chan likes my hugs. Hizashi replied. Zashi-chan gives nice hugs. Izuku nodded in agreement. Shoyuta gave Izuku a look, sending the boy into giggles. Run, Zashi-chan, he said. Hizashi quickly put him down and sprinted away across the sand, in which Shoyuta had quickly gave chase. Izuku sat next to Tekken and Kaken, the 3 of them laughing as they watched as Hizashi tried to outrun Shoyuta, and end up resulting in them falling into the water. Nii-chan silly. Izuku giggled. Yeah, don't be like him. Namuri smirked. Izuku looked at her and pouted. But Nii-chan cool too. Like cool. Ninja. Izuku said. You're Oni-chan ninja? Kaken asked. Yep, but secret ninja. SSH. Izuku pressed a figure to his lips. Kaken mimicked him and nodded. He agreed. Izuku looked around at everyone, before frowning. Where Aji-san? He has quite a way to come, so he is going to be a little later than everyone else. Toshinori explained. Izuku pouted. Torino. Inko waved when she saw the retired hero. He gave a quick wave in turn, but his attention was clear on the Free Boys and Toshinori, who seemed to be trying to make the biggest sandcastle. Aji-san. Aji-san. Izuku waved, his smile blinding. Hello, brat. Torino approached him and ruffled his hair. Izuku giggled. Help with our castle? We're making the biggest. Izuku asked. Maybe in a bit. Torino told him. Okay. Izuku nodded, patting the sandy sides of the castle. Torino caught 2 other small kids looking up at him. Tekken, Kaken, we need shells, the boy announced as Torino sat with the adults, minus Toshinori. How was your trip? Inko asked, handing him a drink. Not bad. Torino replied. He watched as Toshinori aided the 3 boys in looking for shells. I know what you're thinking, doesn't he act like Izuku's dad? Mitsuki smiled. So, I'm not the only one who noticed that. Torino looked at her. Inko sighed. Mitsuki, we spoke. Toshinori is just a good friend. Inko said. Of course you are. But admit it, Toshinori is like a dad to Izuku. Mitsuki poked her arm. He is. Inko couldn't help but admit it. Shoyuta stole a quick glance at her, before Hizashi dragged him away to go swimming. I think it might not just be Yagi-san with a crush. Hizashi smirked. Oh, shut up, Shoyuta muttered. Hizashi chuckled lightly. Still going to have that word with him? Hizashi asked as they waded into the water. Yeah, still want him to know if he hurts her. Shoyuta glanced over at Toshinori and the boys. Iwake was presenting a crab to the man, who was listening to him talk with a smile. If he hurts them, I won't let him just go without punishment. You are a great person, Shoyuta. Hisashi smiled softly. He looked over at Toshinori, but I have a feeling he is too smitten with them to dare hurt them intentionally. Shoyuta watched Toshinori play with Izuku and his friends. Maybe, he muttered, but he couldn't help but smile at the clearly excited Izuku. An hour or so later, the adults began to set out the picnic. The teens sat playing with the toddlers. Shoyuta took a deep breath and approached Toshinori. Yagi-sen, would it be possible to have a quiet word with you, in private? Shoyuta asked him. Toshinori glanced at the teen and gave him a nod. Of course, my boy. Toshinori followed him away from the picnic. What is it, my boy? You like my mom, don't you? Shoyuta turned to him, arms crossed. Toshinori was immediately floored, a deep blush crossed his cheeks. He tried to answer, it came out as a stammering mess. She likes you too, Shoyuta muttered, causing Toshinori to freeze. He looked at the teen, stunned. What? He asked. How you both act, you both like each other, you make her happy. You make Zu happy. Shoyuta glanced over the toddler who was happily eating a sandwich with his friends. So, I am going to say this just once. Hurt them, and I am the one you need to start looking out for. Shoyuta glared at him. Toshinori looked at him, before smiling softly. Before Shoyuta could say anything, the man ruffled his hair. Hey. You're a good kid, Shoyuta. Toshinori spoke. And if I ever did hurt them, I grant you it won't be intention. I will happy to accept any retribution I deserve for doing so. Shoyuta looked at him in surprise, but felt no dishonesty coming from the man. I'll hold you to that. Shoyuta gave a small nod, before the two of them rejoined the group. Nii-chan. Yagi-san. Izuku ran over and held up 2 sandwiches. Save 2, Zashi-chan was going to eat them. They accepted the strange gift. I thought you loved me, Zu-chan. Hisashi cried dramatically. I do, Zashi-chan. Izuku ran to the teen and hugged him, earning a few ahs from the adults. But Nii-chan and Yagi-san need to eat, to be healthy. Izuku patted this. You're too kind, Zu-chan. Hisashi cuddled him. So cuddly too. Izuku giggled and happily snuggled into the hug. What about my hug? Shoyuta asked as he sat down. Izuku gasped, quickly scrambling from Hisashi and collapsed onto Shuta's lap. Nii-chan, Daisuki-ai. He said. Shoyuta smiled and hugged him back. He gave his friends a glare when they began cooing over how cute they were being. I have plenty of pictures of you and Tenya being cute, Tensei. Takara smiled sweetly, pulling out her phone and turning to Inko and Mitsuki. Would care to look? Mom, please, don't. Tensei blushed deeply. Too late. The woman awed over the photos Takara showed them. Tensei hid his face. Shoyuta grinned at him. Karma, he said victoriously. Izuku tugged on Shuta's sleeve. The teen looked at him. His fluffy green head ped to the side. Nii-chan, what karma? Fifth. Karma, it's when you do something good happens to you. Shoyuta explained, and when you do something bad, badness happens. Like when villains get up away for being naughty. Izuku smiled. Yeah, sort of. Shoyuta nodded. Izuku looked down at his hands thoughtfully. If I am good, could I give my karma to someone else so they get the goodness? He asked. Shoyuta smiled. It doesn't work like that, Zu-chan. He said. Oh, Izuku pouted. I just need to do lots of goodness for people. So, they get the goodness karma too. He announced. Why is he so pure? Hisashi asked, tears in his eyes. Izuku saw them and gasped, tearing up too. Don't cry, Zashi-chan. He cried out. The blonde teen immediately had to rush over to calm him, whilst dealing with the 2 other toddlers glaring at him for making Izuku cry. Zukin. Tekken laughed. His father was holding him as he played in the water. Kaken was being held his father whilst Izuku was being held by Toshinori. Look at the daddies with their boys. Mitsuki whispered to Inko and Takara. Takara chuckled as Inko blushed deeply. I can't deny it looks that way. Inko sighed, giving up slightly. Even Inko couldn't ignore how fatherly Toshinori acted around Izuku, and how much Izuku naturally looked up to him as a father figure. Inko knew Toshinori was the kind of man that Izuku deserved as a father, but she couldn't be sure if he felt that way towards Izuku or her in that matter. "Ah, you off daydreaming?" Mitsuki teased lightly. Inko gave her a smile. "I was just thinking about how Toshinori-san is the kind of man Izuku deserves as a father, someone who actually cherishes him for him, not for how clever he is or how quickly he manifests his quirk, or how powerful his quirk may be in that matter." Inko sighed. "Oh, Inko. And you are worried he doesn't see Izuku as a son?" Forrest. "Is it that obvious?" Inko looked at them. "Sweetie, isn't it obvious how much Toshinori-san cherishes Izuku? Just look at them," Mitsuki said pointedly. The mothers looked towards the men again. Izuku clung to Toshinori, both of them, laughing as they fended off water attacks from Tekken and his dad and Kaken and his dad. I wouldn't have guessed they weren't related if Toshinori, actually, I probably wouldn't have believed him. But Izuku is the one who said he isn't his dad. I am still trying to believe that. Torino said, "I know what Todoroki Enji was like, and I can assume his brothers acts in a similar way?" He looked at Inko, who nodded. "I still see more of Toshinori in that kid than I see the Todorokis." Inko looked over at them again. This time a soft smile appeared on her lips. "I need an invite to your wedding though," Torino added as an afterthought, causing Inko to almost choke on the air. Mitsuki and Takara were laughing as she tried to keep down her blush. A few hours passed, and soon everyone helped pack up. Before bidding their farewells, expect Toshinori. Izuku resting in his arms, half asleep as they waved off the teens. "Papa," Izuku mumbled, cuddling into Toshinori. He coughed into his hand, a blush rising to his cheeks. "That's twice now." Inko giggled. Shoyuta watched with a very small smile. "Thank you for coming today." Inko smiled at Toshinori as they settled down in the kitchen. Shoyuta and Izuku were already asleep, worn out by that day's events. "It was no trouble at all, it was fun," Toshinori replied. Inko began to make tea. Toshinori watched her quietly. They sat there in a relaxed silence, nursing their drinks. Toshinori thought back to what Shoyuta had spoken to him earlier about. Inko was a lovely woman, caring, and not as scary as Recovery Girl in instances when he is hurt. He stole a quick glance as Inko looked nervously into her tea. She was beautiful too. Inko-san." "Oh yes." She was pulled from her thoughts. She looked at him. She had the same eyes as Izuku, wide, seemed to glow with life. "I was wondering, are you free this Wednesday?" Toshinori asked, blushing lightly. "In the evening?" Yes, if Shoyuta is willing to babysit, though I doubt he will mind much." Inko blushed slightly. "Would you like?" Toshinori stopped. His face felt unbearably hot. Inko noticed and giggled light, which only made his face burn hotter. "I would love to meet you that night." She smiled. Toshinori let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Inko chuckled again. "Surely it wasn't that hard, Toshinori-san. I've never asked anyone before, and here I am asking the most beautiful women I've met. I felt I had no chance," Toshinori admitted, before realizing what he said. "Sheet." Inko was blushing as much as he was, but she was giggling too. "You're very sweet, Toshinori-san. I have a feeling this was part of the reason why Shoyuta spoke to you in private." She smiled. "Yes, just making it clear he will not be likely to forgive me if I hurt you or young Izuku." Toshinori nodded. "He's a good boy," Inko said softly. They sat in a comfortable silence, sharing small smiles whenever they caught each other's eyes. Mama looked down to see Izuku was standing next to her desk, watching her apply makeup with wide eyes. "What you doing?" "I am going out with Yagi-san, remember. I am making myself look nice," Inko told him. Izuku gave her a confused look, head pinged to the left slightly. "But Mama is already nice," Izuku said, before gasping. "Is Yagi-san Mama's happy person? Nii-chan makes himself nice for Zashi-chan." Izuku burst out. Inko blushed deeply, before smiling at her son. I don't know about him being my happy person, but he is a good friend and a nice man. Inko lifted him onto her lap. Yagi-san is hero. Izuku nodded, smiling. He helps us and plays and makes mama laugh. He does work hard to make us happy, does he? Inko said, realizing all the kindness that came from Toshinori. She smiled lightly and kissed Izuku's forehead. Can Yagi-san stay with us, forever ever, like Nii-chan? Izuku looked up at her. Inko brushed a hand through his hair. I don't know, I can't answer that, sweetie. Inko told him. Izuku pouted softly, before giggling as Inko placed little kiss over his cheeks. Want to go and pester your brother as I finish getting ready? He nodded and hurried off. She smiled and looked back at her mirror for a moment, before getting a wipe to take off her makeup. First official date, go as yourself, he has already seen you on a daily basis. Inko took off her makeup and finished getting her things together. Mom. Yagi-san's here. Shoyuta called. Inko blushed and took a deep breath, putting his bag over her shoulder. Just act natural. She headed out. Toshinori could only stare when Inko came downstairs. A blush rose into his cheek. He heard Shoyuta snigger a little bit, but he ignored him. Inko smiled at him. Ready to go? He asked nervously. Inko nodded. She quickly turned to Shoyuta and Izuku. You know the rules for tonight. Have fun. She gave them in a kiss on the forehead. Shoyuta gave a weak smile. He still wasn't used to the motherly affection from Inko. See you later. Hauda and Izuku waved them off. Partway down the road, Toshinori offered Inko his arm, blushing deeply as he did so. Inko chuckled and accepted it. So, where are you taking me? Oh, there is a beachside restaurant. A friend told me about it, so I thought you might like it. Toshinori said. It's usually packed, but I was able to get the balcony table. You didn't have to do all that. Inko told him, realizing the restaurant he was talking about, and she knew how expensive that place was. It's fine, I wanted to make it special, rememberable. Toshinori said. You deserve the best, he uttered quietly, barely enough for Inko to catch, but she did, and blushed brightly, but Toshinori was completely unaware she had heard him. Inko looked across the sea from their seats on the balcony. Everything she wanted to ask Toshinori ran through her head. But she didn't want to scare him off or anything. She glanced over at him before pulling together her confidence and her thoughts. Toshi, I asked you something? Inko asked as they were waiting for their orders on the balcony of the beachside restaurant. Toshinori looked at her and smiled kindly. Of course. Just, I feel like it is private, and I don't even know if it is true. Inko frowned. Toshinori gave her a confused look. He was wondering if she had worked it out. That's not possible. It's fine, ask away. Toshinori smiled brightly. Are you all might? She asked quietly. Toshinori froze. Thankfully no one was around. He stopped before whispering. How did you guess? Inko took a deep breath. It began back when you came for dinner. Your injuries were in the same area than All Might's was in his last fight before you came. Then I thought back, your hair and eyes are the same, your smile. The kindness you show, you just... Inko stopped. Look like him. Toshinori chuckled lightly. He didn't answer right away as their food was brought and he waited for the door to close before doing so. I can change between two forms. This is what I normally look like. As All Might, I go into my hero form, as I call it. I see, but you are take care of yourself, right? Inko frowned. Toshinori looked at her in surprise. I know it's a hard job, and the number of villains you stop, the people you save. You are taking proper care of yourself, when you aren't around mine, 3 meals a day and such. Toshinori was a little shocked but began laughing lightly. You really are something else, Inko-san. I will work on taking better care of myself. Toshinori smiled. You better, I will be watching. She warned him. Toshinori flinched slightly. This woman was frightening. She and Recovery Girl would get along brilliantly. Yes, ma'am. He nodded. Inko smiled and he felt his cheeks warm up. Does this change anything, you knowing who I am? I already knew you, Yagi Toshinori. I just learned a little more about you. Inko said, before giggling. You are Izuku's second and third favorite heroes. She realized. Even Toshinori laughed at that. I feel better knowing that I am his hero in this form, not just as a pro. Toshinori admitted. Inko watched him. You love Izuku, don't you, like a father would? Inko asked. Toshinori's blushed. It was quite visible to Inko. He looked down at his food, unsure how to answer. Don't get me wrong, I am pleased. You are more of a father figure to him than, you know. And he loves you too, you're one of his favorite people. I am hoping that now I know this secret of yours, you just won't up and leave us, him. It will break his heart. I don't want to leave you guys. I mean, Toshinori found himself at a loss for words. I still want to see you and the boys. Inko gave him a soft smile. We'll be happy to have you around anytime. Inko placed one of her hands on his. The both of them had a light blush across their cheeks. Toshinori accompanied Inko home, their arms intertwined as. When they reached the house, only for Inko to invite him in for a cup of tea. They sat at the kitchen table talking. Toshinori told her a bit more about Gran Torino, and how he actually knew Endeavor. That actually explains why he hasn't come by, you must scare him. Inko said, I beat him 3 times in a row at the sports festival, not matter how hard he tries, he just can't claim the #1 spot. Though, not even I am sure why, he is still very strong. Toshinori muttered. Inko gave him a look. You really don't know? She asked. Know what? Toshinori frowned. There is an obvious difference between you and Endeavor. You actually do good, you do more than help people, you inspire them, give them hope. Endeavor is just so cold and frankly terrifying. Izuku loves all heroes, but Endeavor, he is actually afraid of him. Inko told him. Toshinori looked down at his tea, to let that sink in. That's why he was #1? Mama, the adults looked up to see Izuku rubbing his tired eyes, clutching an all-might blanket. You should asleep, sweetie. Inko got up and lifted him up. Izuku yawned and cuddled into her. Sleepy, he mumbled, his tired eyes landed on Toshinori. Hi Yagi-san. He gave him a weak wave. Hello my boy, you should really get some rest. It is very late. Toshinori told him. Izuku yawned and hummed in reply, before falling asleep in his mom's arms. Oh dear. Inko smiled and ran a hand through his hair. Well, it is late and I should head off too, let you get some rest. Toshinori finished his tea. Inko walked him to the door. We should do this again someday, son. He added just before he left. Inko gave a small nodded, blushing and waved him off. She smiled as she closed the door, looking down at her youngest. I have a feeling we'll see him around here a little more. Inko whispered, placing a soft kiss on Izuku's forehead. Izuku weakly opened his eye, tears glistened down his cheeks as he sat up. He sniffed and wiped them away. Yaisen, he whispered sadly. He climbed from his bed and peeked into his mom's room. When he saw she was asleep, he snuck downstairs and looked at the home phone. He saw a number written on a note next to a name. Yagi Toshinori. Izuku carefully tapped in the number and held it to his ear as it began to ring. Toshinori was working late that night, helping taking down a large group of villains and alone. He had noticed them not too long ago, called for backup before going into his hero form to confront them, and it was a lot easier than one may expect. That was until he got a phone call in the midst of the fight. As he punched a few villains back, he pulled out his phone to see it was Inko's house phone. He frowned. She was never up this later, not with a son as young as Izuku. He quickly answered. Hello? He asked, punching a villain that was getting far too close. There was a small sniffle. That was definitely not Inko. Yagi-san. The small, broke voice of Izuku asked. Boy, it's very later, why are you calling? He asked, worry bubbling up inside him. Was the Midoriya's hurt? I had a bad dream, Yagi-san, Izuku said. My boy, Toshinori began, before having to dodge a quirk and attacked the villain that tried to hit him. Wouldn't your mother be the better one to speak to? But, my dream, you were hurt and alone and you were hurt so badly, Yagi-san. Izuku cried quietly. Toshinori frowned. The boy had had a bad dream with him getting hurt? Whilst Inko knew who he was, knew he was a pro hero, He was sure Izuku and Shoyuta were unaware of that fact. Are you okay, Yagi-san? I am quite well, my boy. How about I come around after I finish the job I am on, so you can see I am okay? Toshinori suggested, knowing he was going to have to message or ring Inko about this, and warn her he was coming over. Okay. Izuku sniffed before the call ended. Toshinori put his phone away and dealt with the villains quickly, having them all tied up before the police arrive. They took them off and Toshinori made his getaway and was able to return to his civilian form. He pulled his phone out again and placed a call to Inko. Toshinori? Inko asked tiredly. Sorry to bother you this late, but I got a call from Izuku, Toshinori began. He's okay. He added quickly to calm Inko before she panicked. But apparently had a nightmare about me being hurt and wanted to make sure I was okay. I may have promised to come room to prove to him I was okay. There is small silence. I will unlock the front door, so you can come in. He is currently in the living room watching on of your animes. Inko muttered quietly. After having a nightmare he will be a little clingy and will need lots of hugs to be reassured. Inko told him. Are nightmares common? Toshinori asked, a little worried. Sometimes, usually only after something has happened. He had a few nightmares after his dad came for him, after the villain attack that made him run to UA. They usually only last a night or two, but it helps for him to see the people in the dreams not long after them, helps him feel more at ease. So, thank you. Inko said, a smile in her voice. It's no problem. I'm almost there now. I'll see you in a bit. Toshinori nodded. Inko gave a soft hum in reply, and he had a feeling she was likely to be back in bed when he arrived. The call ended and Toshinori broke into a small jog. He arrived at the Midoriya residence not long later, and let himself in. He could hear the TV playing. He carefully closed the door to avoid waking the whole household and looked into the living room. Izuku was curled up on the sofa, eyes closed as he napped, in All Might anime playing on the TV screen. He carefully sat next to the boy, who stirred from his nap. Tired green eyes saw him. Izuku shifted himself so he was curled into Toshinori's side. Yaisen, he mumbled. Toshinori smiled softly and ruffled the boy's hair. You okay? Toshinori asked. Izuku gave a small nod. Toshinori smiled and lifted Izuku onto his lap. The boy wriggled a bit and curled into his chest. A small hand balled itself up in his shirt. Toshinori leaned his head back, holding the sleeping child close, hoping his presence could help hold back any nightmares that wanted to torment the boy. Slowly, the secret pro-hero also fell asleep. Shoyuta was a little surprised to see Izuku asleep on Toshinori's lap when he woke that next morning. He sort of froze in the doorway looking at the scene. Izuku had a nightmare about Toshinori being hurt. Inko said, passing him to smile at the scene. So, he came rushing around to assure he was all right. Ah. Shoyuta muttered. Come on, let's get breakfast ready. Izuku will likely be awake soon. Inko patted his shoulder. Izuku woke up in a warm embrace. He weakly opened his eyes to find himself curled up against Toshinori, who was still asleep. Izuku. He turned to see his mom with a small smile. You feeling better, baby? She asked. He yawned and nodded, but continued to snuggle into Toshinori. The man shifted a little but didn't wake up. You want some breakfast? Is Yagi-san staying for breakfast? Izuku asked quietly. I think he is, and breakfast is almost ready. Want to wake him? Inko said. Izuku yawned and nodded. Inko smiled softly and began heading back to the kitchen. She glanced back to Izuku softly patting Toshinori's cheek to wake him. She joined Shoyuta in the kitchen. They'll be joining us in a minute. She told him. Yagi-sen, Izuku muttered, patting the man's cheek. Toshinori hummed, and opened his eyes weakly, looking down at the small on his lap. Morning, Yagi-san. Morning, how are you feeling today? Toshinori asked. Izuku nodded and laid his head on his chest. You okay? He said softly. Toshinori smiled and pet his head. Oh, Mama said breakfast is almost ready. Ah, then let's go and get it. Toshinori said, wrapping his arms around the small boy. He stood up. Izuku giggled looking around. So tall. He looked down. Tashinori chuckled and walked into the kitchen. Nii-chan. Me tall. Izuku announced happily. Shoyuta looked at him and smirked. That you are. He nodded. Izuku giggled happily and cuddled into Tashinori's shoulder. Inko watched them with a soft smile. Have a good day, Shoyuta. Inko gave him a wave as he headed off to you. He turned and gave her a small wave. Bye-bye, Nii-chan. Izuku yelled. Inko chuckled. Come on you, daycare. I'm sure Mirio-kun is looking forward to playing with you today. I wonder if he has his quirk now. I bet he has a really cool quirk, like really cool. Izuku gasped as they began heading to the daycare. Shoyuta cool, or All Might cool? Inko asked. Izuku looked thoughtful. Nii-chan cool. Izuku said instantly. Inko smiled softly, as Izuku began talking happily about the quirks the older kids have already started to show. The day seemed to pass quickly. Inko suspected it was due to the busy day she had at work. Shoyuta was out on a date with Hizashi. Inko was pleased that their relationship was progressing well. A laugh pulled her from her thoughts. She glanced up from preparing dinner to see Izuku playing with Tashinori. Both of them smiling and laughing joyfully. She smiled softly, watching them. Torino and Mitsuki had been right. They were really like father and son. And she knew Tashinori loved Izuku like a son, and Izuku saw him as a father figure, so things all worked out on that end. The home phone rang, and Inko went to answer it. Izuku noticed her go and looked up at Tashinori. Yagi-san, are you Mama's happy person? Izuku asked, he head ped to the side lightly. Tashinori smiled, lifting the boy onto his lap. Yes, is that okay? The man asked. Izuku nodded. You make Mama happy. Izuku said. She has a big smile when you write her on your... He waved him arm a little, trying to think of the right word. Phone. Tashinori asked. Yep, on phone. Please keep my Mama smiling. Izuku told him. I promise I will, my boy. Tashinori smiled and ruffled his hair. Izuku giggled happily. Thank you, Papa. Izuku beamed. Tashinori blushed brightly, but warmth surrounded his heart, like it was being hugged. Izuku had clearly not noticed his small slip-up. Yagi-san, play more? Oh, of course, my boy. Tashinori replied just as enthusiastically. He really couldn't have been happier. Inko picked up the phone, not able to hear what was going on in the living room. Hello, Midoriya residence. Who is speaking? Midoriya-san, I am Principal Nizu of U. A High School of Heroics. The voice on the other end of the line replied. Are you free to talk, Midoriya-san? Yes, is this about Shoyuta? She asked nervously. Oh no. This is actually about your youngest, Izuku. Nizu said, surprising Inko. I have only met him once, but it was clear to see he is much different from others his age. He is only around 1 to 2 years old, and yet his intelligence seems equal to that of a 5 to 6-year-old. Yes, Izuku has matured faster intellectually than anyone his age. I know he is capable of doing Shuta's level of work, as he tries to help out and gets the right answers without help. Inko nodded. Have you considered he may have an intelligence quirk? Yes, it has popped up in conversations. However, no one in my family history of his father's has had an intelligence quirk. So, there is a low chance of that being his quirk. Inko said, I understand. I am actually curious of his intelligence, and if possible, could I spend the time testing him tomorrow? Nizu asked. Whether his intelligence is natural or due to a quirk, I would like to take him one as a potential successor as sort. My Izuku, Inko asked, a little surprised. I know it may sound surprising, Midoriya-san, but you probably realize I am the only current pro hero with a higher intelligence quirk. I would like to impart my knowledge to a successor as some heroes do. Nizu said, and your son is the only one I deem worthy of sharing my knowledge if you allow it. Inko was at a loss for words. Inko-san. Tashinori placed a hand on her shoulder. She looked up at him. He was holding Izuku. Is everything okay? Please excuse me for a moment, Nizu-san. Inko quickly told the animal hero. Of course. Nizu replied. Inko covered the receiver and explained everything he had just said to her to Tashinori. He looked at her with equal surprise. It is rare for Nizu to be interested in taking someone on as his personal student. He obviously sees great potential in Izuku. What potential? Izuku asked. It means you have the power to become something great. Toshinori answered with a smile. You have a lot of it. Izuku beamed at that. I have potential, mama, he said proudly. You do, sweetie, so, how about it? Would you like to do a test and spend the day with Nizu-san? Inko looked at her son. Can I? But, school and Mirio-kun. Izuku looked worried. I will explain it to them. Inko smiled. Izuku looked thoughtful before nodding. Please, mama, he said. Inko turned back to the call. I think it will be fine for him to be in your care tomorrow. Inko told Nizu. Excellent. Nizu smiled. I look forward to seeing you both tomorrow then. Please come when you are ready to do so. And with that the call ended. Inko put the phone down and took a deep breath. Right, I should finish dinner, she announced to Toshinori and Izuku, but gave small happy cheers. She gave them both a playful scowl. If it makes you feel better, Toshinori muttered quietly as he helped Inko wash up, as Izuku sat watching the news, cheering on a hero in a fight. I am a guest speaking at Udata tomorrow, for the 3rd years. I could keep an eye out for Izuku whilst I am there. That would be lovely, thank you, Toshi. Hi. Izuku beamed at the pro-hero animal. Principal Nizu smiled back, taking the boy's hands in his paw as they meet with him the following day. Nice to see you again, young Midoriya. Nizu smiled. Are you sure this isn't any trouble? Of course. Young Midoriya caught my eye the first time I met him. He is quite unlike anyone else his age. Nizu said. The daycare says that he is gifted. Inko told him. He matured a lot faster than most people his age and he is quite clever. He helps Shoyuta and his friends with their homework sometimes, correcting mistakes. Nizu chuckled. I see. Well, in case you didn't know, my quirk, Nizu began. High specs makes him super clever. Izuku burst out. Nizu nodded. To put it simply, I would like to test Izuku, find out his IQ. From there, we can find his studying level. Nizu smiled. Inko glanced down at Izuku, who looked so excited about the prospect of spending the day surrounded by heroes. That would be wonderful. You will behave now, okay, Izuku? Inko knelt to speak to her son. Izuku looked at her with bright eyes. He nodded. Promise, mama, he said. Inko smiled and kissed his forehead. I'll see you later, sweetie. Inko waved to him as she headed off, away from the Udata gate. Bye-bye. Izuku waved. He followed after Nizu. Izuku entered the staff room after Nizu, and he could hear the heroes cooing before he was surrounded. Is this that little bean? A woman picked him up. Izuku gasped. Silver Force. He gasped. The woman beamed happily. Your shields are so cool. I want a quirk like that. He smiled. I am sure your quirk will be perfect no matter what it is. Silver Force smiled, putting the boy down. Izuku began naming the other heroes he could see. Chameleon, Steel Fist, Ghost, and the hero twins Melting Point and Boiling Point. Izuku looked around them with shining eyes. This is Midoriya Izuku. He is spending the day with me to do an IQ test. Nizu introduced him. A IQ test? At his age? Steel Fist frowned, looking concerned. I can do. I helped Zashi-chan with his homework. And Nii-chan, she made mistake once and I helped make it right. Izuku told him, looking incredibly proud. Young Midoriya has already shown an intellectual prowess of someone much older than him. We are currently unaware if it is an intelligence quirk or natural intellect. Nizu explained. Ah, so this little cuties is also a smarty. Silver Force beamed down at Izuku. Another teacher entered the room. They looked down at Izuku. You're Aizawa-kun's little brother. They muttered. Izuku turned, eyes still shining. Silent runner. Izuku gasped. Wait, this is Aizawa's little brother we've heard so much about? Boiling Point pointed at Izuku with a look of absolute amazement. Nii-chan is bestest hero, he ninja. Izuku whispered, which just made the teachers coo over him again. Come now, Midoriya-kun, we have a lot to do and a lot to teach you. Nizu looked at the boy, who nodded. Yes, Nizu-sensei. Izuku beamed and followed after the animal. He is so cute. The teachers cooed lightly. Do you think Aizawa is aware his little brother is in? Silent Runner asked. The teachers fell silent. Let's see how long it takes him to notice. Melting Point smirked. He was never one to miss out on a chance to mess with the students. Izuku wasn't sure how long he sat with Nizu, doing the series of tests he had. But doing all the questions were fun. I am doing big kid work, Izuku smiled proudly. He answered the last question and held out the paper to the principal. Finished, he said happily. Good job. Nizu praised. Izuku flushed proudly. Is there more? Izuku asked eagerly. I'm afraid not. But I can have some of the teachers to prepare you some work, if you like. Nizu smiled at the boy. Izuku nodded. Please, he said. Nizu patted his head and sent an email out to the teachers with the request of work for the toddler. Izuku looked up when there was a knock on the office door. He's here already? Nizu muttered. Come it. Izuku almost squealed when All Might entered. Good morning, Principal. The number 1 hero beamed. Izuku ducked behind the desk, peeking out shyly from behind it. The boy watched. As Nizu greeted the hero with a smile, he squeaked when All Might looked at him. All Might, this is Midoriya Izuku. He has been doing some tests. Nizu explained. Really? A bit young to be doing high school test. All Might smiled kindly at Izuku. Izuku perked up happily. Big kid work is easy. Izuku told him, coming from his hiding place. We met once. Yes, at the shopping mall. It is good to see you again, young man. All Might held out his hand. Izuku shuffled forward, taking his hand. Does your size equal to how strong you are? Izuku asked. All Might chuckled. It sounded so familiar to Izuku. Sort of my boy. All Might nodded. That also sounded familiar. Do you need to keep your quirks secret so bad guys don't find out? Izuku asked. All Might smiled got impossibly wider. Exactly. All Might beamed. Like Nii-chan. His quirk must be secret too. Izuku told him. Yes, there are a few heroes that do better without everyone knowing how their quirks work. All Might replied. Izuku nodded in agreement. Izuku soon set off, asking multiple questions about what it was like to be a hero. Nizu watched as All Might happily answered the boy's questions. Nizu sorted out the papers, preparing to send them to the government marking office. Why are you here? Izuku asked. I'm here to give a talk to the third years, give them some advice from what I've learnt in my time as a hero. All Might told him. Do I get to hear the talk? Izuku brightened up. This afternoon, yes. Nizu nodded. Izuku let out a small giggling cheers. Nizu didn't miss the fond expression in All Might's eyes. Once they moved to the main staff room, Izuku sat by boiling point, doing some maths. The toddler giggling expressed how easy the questions were. Boiling point kept sending over amazed expression Silver Force, showing the boy was answering them right. So, how do you really know young Midoriya? Nizu asked the number 1 hero. I know his mother. I think we're dating. I can't be sure. I mean, All Might stopped. I need to ask her. Nizu let out a small hum. Nizu-sensei. Izuku ran over, his work finished with a smiley face drawn on it. I got a smiley. All Might smiled kindly. Of course that was the toddler's main source of excitement. Doesn't your school hand out smiley faces? Nizu asked. Yes, but they give smiley faces to people for picking up toys and lots of things. It means not as much. Izuku said. They give out smileys to be fair, not how well someone is being nice or good work. The pros looked at him in surprise. And this is big kid work, they don't give me this work. Is there more? I can give you as much work as you want, kid. Boiling Point said, bringing out a large folder. Always keep extra homework sheets in case a student loses one. Izuku beamed and rushed back over, happily taking as many homework sheets that could fit in his arms. Boiling Point was muttering how he wished his students were as eager as Izuku was. Maybe the daycare should give him higher level work. Silver Force muttered. If his IQ is anything like I expect it to be, I will hopefully be taking him on as my student. I will then give him more suitable to his level. Visit. He'll like that. All Might nodded. Can I take him to my second-year class before lunch? He could teach my students a thing or two. Silver Force smirked. Izuku looked up from his work with wide eyes. Can I? Izuku gasped. As long as you do as Silver Force says. Nizu nodded. Izuku beamed in reply. Needless to say, Izuku put each and every teen in Silver Force's class to shame, taking notes, or at least trying to in his messy childlike writing, and paying attention. The teens were all distracted. By the end of that lesson, Silver Force sent them away with a warning that Izuku is the perfect example of someone learning to be a hero, and that a 1-year-old was better behaved and more attentive than a bound of 16 to 17-year-olds. Shoyuta, you didn't say Zu-chan was in today. Nemuri pouted as she joined Shoyuta, Hizashi and Tensei at a table. Shoyuta almost choked on his lunch. He's what? Shoyuta gasped. Oh? You didn't know? Yeah, well, he put 2A to shame. Nemuri laughed. Silver Force was having a good laugh about it, and the whole class is complained about this cute green-haired kid. God damn it. Shoyuta muttered and quickly ate his lunch before getting up, planning on going to the staff room to find out why his little brother was there, when a small voice rang out, causing the canteen to fall silent. Nii-chan. Izuku called, running to him, crashing into his legs and hugging it tightly. Before falling into a very fast rant about everything he did today. Whoa, calm down. Shoyuta knelt to him. Izuku was beaming, checks read. It got to spend class with Silver Force, and did big kid work with Boiling Point, and Nizu-sensei let me do this really funny tests. Izuku explained. Boiling Point says I can have as much big kid work as I want. I got 5 smiley faces, 5. Izuku held up his hand. Shoyuta could see the students cooing over how cute Izuku was. You got all of Boiling Point's homework question right? Shoyuta asked. Izuku nodded, which did shut up a few students. He says, I'm a good student and I got 5 smiley faces, Nii-chan. Izuku giggled. Shoyuta sighed. He picked Izuku up. Have you eaten? Fifth. Nope, Mama gave me this to get food. Izuku held up a little brown envelope. You sit with Zashi, and I will get you katsudon, okay? Shoyuta smiled. Izuku nodded. He happily sat on Hizashi lap. Hi Zashi-chan. He smiled. Hey, so, what are you doing here at U.A? Hizashi asked. I did tests for IQ. Izuku answered. Oh, and IQ test, how do you think you did? Nemuri smiled. They were funny questions. Izuku said, not normal questions. Yeah, those tests would be pretty weird. Hizashi nodded. Shada returned with a tray with Izuku's lunch. Izuku happily accepted it, and took a big bite, before he gasped and tried blowing on the hot food in his mouth. Careful, Zu. Shoyuta warned. Izuku swallowed and nodded, and ate a little slower, and blew on his food to cool. I can't believe you weren't told. Hizashi looked at Shoyuta. It's a nice surprise. Think we could persuade Nizu to let Zu stay in our class for the rest of the day? Tensei asked. Izuku shook his head, before whispering. All Might is speaking to the big class. Nizu-sensei says I can listen too. Izuku told them. Oh, lucky you. Nemuri smiled. I was talk with him when he saw Nizu, he answered my questions. Izuku told and began telling them all. Once Izuku had finished, Shoyuta and his small group took him back to the staff room. Of course most of the teachers were laughing about how protective Shoyuta was being. I'll see you later, okay? Shoyuta knelt before Izuku. The toddler nodded. After talk, spend time in class with you? Izuku asked. You'll have to ask Nizu-sensei about that. Shoyuta gave him a hug. Izuku hugged him back, burying his face into Shuta's shoulder. The teachers and his friends cooed. Shoyuta grumbled something, and with one last ruffle of Izuku's hair, left the toddler in the care of the staff. Izuku was quiet through the talk, sitting on Silver Force's lap as All Might talked. Whilst All Might took center stage, there were occasions where the third years kept glancing over at the toddler, watching the number 1 with wide eyes and soft smile that was so full of hope. All Might. Izuku tugged on the hero's cape after the talk and All Might was about to leave. Yes, my boy. The hero knelt down to face him. Are you Yagi-san? He asked. All Might stared at him in surprise, before smiling soft and ruffling his hair. Nothing gets past you, does it, my boy? Toshinori chuckled. Izuku's eyes lit up, before hugging him. I keep it secret, All Might. Izuku whispered in promise. Your mother already knows. He said. Izuku looked at him with wide eyes. She guessed too. Toshinori smiled. Will you come by for dinner? Izuku asked quietly. I always do. Toshinori assured him. Izuku waved him off happy. Here you are, managed to convince Nizu to let you spend my last lesson with my class. Shoyuta came up behind him. You finished saying bye to Yagi-san? Izuku jumped and looked up at his brother. Shoyuta smirked. It's not hard to guess, you know. I had my suspicions for a while now. He explained. Izuku giggled and hugged Shuta's leg. He's still coming for dinner? He said he always does. I like Yagi-san, 'cause he makes Mama happy, and Mama needs to be happy. Izuku whispered, clutching Shuta's leg. Shoyuta ruffled his hair again. Yeah. He muttered. Izuku. Have fun. Inko picked up her baby as he ran at her at the end of the day. Around them, Yurata students cooed as Izuku giggled happily, explaining in his own, fast pace about everything he did. Mama, Yagi-san is All Might. Izuku leaned into her shoulder and whispered. Inko was a little surprised. She then let out a small laugh. Bet you gave him a surprise finding out. Inko smiled. Nii-chan guessed too. Izuku told her. Inko laughed. Well, Yagi-san is going to be very surprised when he comes for dinner. Inko said. Izuku giggled and nodded. With that, the Midoriyas headed home. Features: Silver Force, Quirk Force Fields. Chameleon, Quirk Appearance Altering. Melting Point, Quirk can cause things to melt when touching an object with 5 fingers. Boiling Point, Quirk able to heat up objects to their boiling point by touch. Steel Fist, Quirk Steel Manipulation. Ghost, Quirk able to transform into a gaseous form. The weekend arrived, and Shoyuta was at the table with Hizashi, both of them working on an essay. Inko was baking some mushipan, whilst Toshinori was left to watch over Izuku. The boy was jumping around as he usually did. Yagi-san. Izuku poked the man's leg. He chuckled. Yes, my boy? He smiled. Why is Eat at the Fire Hero mean to you? Izuku looked up at him confused. Toshinori smiled and lifted Izuku onto his lap. Because he believes that being a hero means competition, he wants to be the best and hates the fact that I am number 1. Toshinori told him. It's not a competition, people act like it is, Izuku muttered. Yeah, it's like they have forgotten what it means to be a hero. Toshinori nodded. I'll remember. I'll be good hero, Papa. Izuku beamed. From the table, Shoyuta and Hizashi glanced up with a surprised, but small smile. Inko chuckled lightly as Toshinori went red. You'll be a great hero. Toshinori rubbed his back. Izuku giggled happily and ended up cuddling into him. Toshinori gave Inko a help me look. She just shook her head. Welcome to parenthood. She smiled in a teasing tone. Just don't expect me to start calling you Papa. Shoyuta added, causing Hizashi next to him to start laughing. Toshinori wanted to melt into the floor, but instead hugged Izuku back. The family settled to try Inko's mushipan when there was a knock on the door. Inko answered it and returned with Principal Nizu. Nizu-sensei. Izuku smiled cheerfully, waving at the pro-hero. Hello, young Midoriya. Nizu greeted. So, what brings you here, Nizu-san? Inko asked. Nizu brought out an envelope. His IQ results have come in. He answered. Izuku suddenly looked nervous. Toshinori pulled the boy on top his lap again. It seemed to bring comfort to the boy, who gripped his shirt. Inko accepted the envelope and opened it. Her eyes widened. An IQ level of 158, Inko read. What? Everyone coursed. Nizu just looked impressed, but not overly surprised. What does that mean? Izuku asked. It means you have a very superior intelligence. Nizu explained. That good? He looked confused. Very good, my baby is so smart. Inko kissed his cheek. Gifted indeed. This mean I can keep doing big kid work? Izuku's eyes widened. You can do all the big kid work you want, sweetheart. Inko smiled. You can be a hero like Nizu-san. He used his intelligence to take down villains. Toshinori smiled down at Izuku, who gasped, pressing his hands to his cheeks, squishing them. A hero like Nizu-sensei. Izuku muttered. Can I be a hero like Nizu-sensei and All Might? You can be better. Shoyuta said. Inko smiled at her son. You can be a hero like you, sweetie, and I think you will be the next best hero. She leant over and placed a kiss to his forehead. Izuku giggled happily. Nii-chan, Papa, can you train me to be a hero when I'm big? He asked, looking between the pro hero and the hero in training. Sure. They both said immediately, causing Izuku to beam happily. Hizashi just smirked. Inko also had a knowing smile. They both knew they didn't have the heart to say no. This brings me to my main question, Midoriya-san. I would like to take Izuku on as my personal student. Nizu said. Inko smiled, and looked at Izuku, who was looking at Nizu with as much surprise as Toshinori, Shoyuta and Hizashi. I think it would be best for him. I feel that his daycare wouldn't be able to fulfill his intellectual needs. Inko nodded. Izuku's eyes widened. I can learn from Nizu-sensei? He asked. Yep, and he will be able to give you the type of work Shudakuen does. Inko smiled. Izuku smiled and cheered happily. Plans were then set in place. Izuku would go to UA 3 times a week to study with Nizu. Shoyuta would be the one to walk him to and from UA on those days. The other days he would be at daycare. Inko waved Nizu off at the door. As she closed the door, Hizashi approached her. Inko-san, could I ask you something in private, please? Yes. Of course, sweetie. Inko smiled. Well, has Shoyuta told you his birthday is on the 8th of this month? Hizashi whispered. No, he may have forgotten, Inko said, before smiling softly. But it is something worth celebrating. Hizashi beamed at that. I'll leave you in charge of inviting his friends. I work everything else out. Great. Hizashi grinned. The two of them returned to the kitchen. Izuku had gotten his notebook and was drawing in it. I want a scarf like Nii-chan, Izuku said, and tried to draw a similar scarf that Shoyuta had in his costume. It would be best to wait for your quirk, Shoyuta said, and then design your costume to work around it. Oh, Izuku looked at the drawing. But better come up with lots of designs, Shoyuta added with a smile. If you had a quirk like Mom's, a scarf could be useful. Izuku beamed and continued drawing. And for a name, you can be Cutie. Hizashi slid back into his seat. No. Izuku pouted lightly, cheeks tinged pink. How about Bunny? You act like a little bunny rabbit sometimes. Inko teased. Izuku looked thoughtful. I can be a bunny hero, he announced happily. You can add ears to a hood, Shoyuta suggested. Izuku did, giggling. Inko watched her boys with a smile. She began planning the birthday party in the back of her mind. Toshinori sat in the living room, helping Izuku wrap his birthday present. For Shoyuta, Toshinori, Inko, Hizashi, Ida and Nomuri's gifts lay already wrapped on the table. Shoyuta had even got one from the Bakugos. You're my sister from another family, Inko, that makes him my nephew, Mitsuki had happily told her. And one from Gran Torino, who grumbled a similar reply. Inko was just putting finishing touches to a cat cake. Hizashi had assured her cats were Shuta's most favorite things. There was another reason. She kept glancing over to her gift that had holes poked into it. I'm back, Shoyuta called as he stepped into the house, Hizashi, Tensei and Nomuri following. Afternoon. Nomuri cheered. Shoyuta stepped into the kitchen and Inko beamed at him. Happy birthday, Nii-chan. Izuku came rushing in before she even had a chance. Shoyuta grunted and fell back as Izuku collided with his legs and hugged it. Luckily, Hizashi caught him, laughing. You got some strength there, Zu-chan. Hizashi laughed. Strong like Papa and Nii-chan. Nii-chan's birthday, you even bigger. Izuku threw up his hands excitedly. Shoyuta glanced at Hizashi. I totally told them. He beamed. Happy birthday. He kissed his cheek. Get a room. Tensei teased. Nii-chan loves his happy person. Zashi-chan a good happy person. Izuku giggled. Well, go and settle in the living room. We're going to be ordering food tonight, and you have some presents to open. Shoyuta. Inko smiled. Shoyuta looked surprised, but Izuku grabbed the bottom on his shirt and pulled him into the living room. Everyone settled in the living room. Izuku had taken up his usual seat on Toshinori's lap. Inko joined them as soon as she finished the cake. Then came the gift opening. Gran Torino had gotten him a year's training at a nearby dojo, which both surprised and pleasantly pleased Shoyuta. The Bakugos had managed to get him a handmade photo frame with cats carved around the outside, able to hold at least 20 pictures and was easy to hang up on the wall. Shoyuta immediately hid what Namuri brought him. He glared at her as she laughed. Hizashi was blushing. Tensei was shaking his head. Toshinori and Inko were trying not to laugh, but Izuku sat there feeling incredibly confused. Hizashi had gotten him a voucher for the nearby cat cafe that had unlimited visits for a year. Izuku had made him a collect of clay models, and by the paint's colors on them, it was meant to be him, Izuku, Inko, and Toshinori. After promising to put them on his desk so he could see them every day, Izuku teared up happily. Then was Inko's gift. He froze as he removed the lid. Inko smiled softly. What's it, Nii-chan? Izuku asked, very careful. Shoyuta pulled out a pure black mane CN kitten. Kitty. Inko shushed him as the kitten napped. You didn't have to. Shoyuta looked at Inko. She smiled. No, but I wanted to. You can call him whatever you want. Inko said. Name Nii-chan. Izuku giggled. He is terrible with names, Hizashi began. Fuzzinator. Shoyuta answered. Hizashi groaned. That's not a cat name. Hizashi tried to reason with him. Fuzz in Atta. Izuku giggled. Let's call him Fuzz for short. Still stands for Fuzzinator. Shoyuta said, smirking at Hizashi. The rest of the night was pleasant. Fuzz woke up and happily padded around, and seemed interested in Izuku. The two of them would just stare at each other, before Fuzz let out a soft mewl and clamber all over the boy, who giggled. That night, Shoyuta fell asleep with the kitten asleep on his stomach. He was not expecting to be woken up by almost being suffocated by the fluff ball that following morning. I can't believe it's almost Christmas. Hizashi muttered. He and Shoyuta were walking to Yudare, all bundled up in winter jackets and scarves. Shoyuta hummed, face buried into his scarf. It was their last day before the holiday, and Shoyuta found himself looking forward to the coming holiday for once. Any idea what you're getting, Izuku? Not yet. Maybe I should get him a onesie. He prefers them over normal PJs. He's got so many All Might onesies, he could do with some more variety. Shoyuta muttered. You should get him a cute bunny one. Hizashi beamed. Shoyuta gave him a look. A bunny? Why? He reminds me of one. Hizashi explained. A cute little bouncy bunny. The same energy. Shoyuta thought about it. Yeah, some kittens have the same energy too. Shoyuta said. Get him a bunny and a kitten one then. Hizashi told him. Shoyuta hummed lightly. It sounded like a plan. They would go well with what Namuri and I are getting him. What are you getting him? Shoyuta asked curiously. Hizashi just grinned. You'll find out on Christmas. Hizashi smiled, his tone teasing. You worry me sometimes. Shoyuta sighed but gave him a small smile. Hizashi just smirked at him. Mama, what get Nii-chan for Christmas? Izuku asked. Inko and Izuku had finished work and daycare a few days earlier and were now looking for gifts in the town. Well, what would you like to get him? Inko smiled. Izuku looked thoughtful. Cat things. Izuku smiled. Inko smiled and gave his small hand a squeeze. I think they have a cat onesie that could fit him. Think he'll like that? Inko asked. Izuku beamed and nodded. Then, let's get him that, and you can make him a special Christmas card to go with it. Yay! Izuku giggled happily. And Papa, what he get for Christmas? Inko's smile softened at his question. Is Papa coming for Christmas? I am sure he'll come along if you ask him. Inko smiled, fully knowing Toshinori was planning on coming on Christmas, but she didn't want to miss the look on Izuku's face as he asked him. How about Aji-san? Will Aji-san come? Izuku looked up at her. You can ask your papa tonight. Inko smiled. Can we get Aji-san something too? Izuku asked. I think he'll like that ever much. Inko nodded, the toddler giggled happily. Inko smiled at her son's joy. She began to ponder what to get her family whilst Izuku chatted to himself, thinking about his own gifts. Toshinori stood in a toy store, looking around, somewhat lost. What should he get Izuku? It would be too awkward to get a toy of his hero form, though he could easily get another kind of hero doll. Izuku was fond of them all after all. Maybe the toddler would like a new notebook and colors. Maybe he could get him the notebook, colors and a doll. Then what about Shoyuta? He didn't consider him a father figure, but Toshinori would do well by the whole family. He had already brought Inko's gift, and hopefully would get a chance to ask her out properly on the day. He sighed heavily. A store assistant approached him. Can I help you, sir? Yes. Maybe. I am looking for a Christmas gift from my son who is only 1.5. I am new to this father thing and not sure what to get him. Toshinori explained, hoping she would be able to shed some light on what he could do. Oh, I also need something for his teenager brother. He doesn't consider me a father figure yet, but you know. Ah, I completely understand. The assistant smiled. Can you tell me their interests? Well, the younger on loves heroes and schoolwork. He is extremely clever for his age, working at the same level as his older brother. Toshinori smiled fondly. The older one, I know he likes cats. Wondering if that would be good enough to find a good gift. Right, let me think. Have you thought of getting the toddler a schooling kit, like bag, pencil case, pencils, pens, ruler and all that stuff? There is a shop just down that way that do them costumed made, asking for any pattern at all. The assistant smiled, and for the teen. There is a lovely shop in this direction that sells cat-themed mugs. Maybe they would be of interest to him. Right? Thank you, I'll have a look. Toshinori smiled, and headed off to look at the shops. Torino sat in his home, wrapping up a few gifts. Even with him gaining some grandkids unexpectedly, he was quite happily to indulge in the family, though he showed it little. Inko did remind him of Nana in a few ways. They were both strong women who could handle themselves well, and Izuku, that kid, smiled as brightly as Nana and as strong as All Might. He was being to consider that Izuku was practically Small Might at this point. If trained to be a hero, he could be as big a hero as All Might. Father like son. He thought with a smirk. He was happy Toshinori found a lovely woman, found himself a family. He could remember how Nana had spoke so fondly of her own. Before that time. Torino sighed. Heaven forbid the villains found out about the sweet Midoriya family. Not even he would be able to bear to lose them to the villains, just like he lost Nana.